Bene, good morning, and thank you for joining us for our second workshop in the Indigenous Co-Innovation of Food, Energy, and Water Systems. My name is Dr. Carletta Chief, and I'm an Associate Professor and Extension Specialist at the University of Arizona. I am also from the Navajo Nation. I like to take this moment to introduce myself in my own language. Yaate bene adona and shinigi eya torich no tohana bashichin. Dezatlane dashiche do ye edene etachini edashanala akot e sanenchle. We're excited for this workshop number 2, which is a follow-up from our first workshop in our goal to look at how we can co-innovate with Indigenous communities in food, energy, water systems, and technologies. Our first workshop was focused on co-innovation, and we had many topics I'll go over in a few. But this workshop is focused on tribal colleges and university, and we want to understand their effective strategies in working with their students in their pathways to food, energy, and water. So our agenda today is that we will like to welcome you, and I want to provide an overview of our efforts today in partnership with Diné College, University of California, Berkeley, and University of Arizona. Then we'll go right into the panel discussion, and it's going to be exciting, really. Looking forward to it, and then the Q&A that will follow afterwards. Is the SVP for Native American Affairs on the line? I'd like to have him provide a welcome. Mr. Levi Esquera.
There I am. Good morning. It's great to be here. My name is Levi Esquera. I'm just currently started work for the University of Arizona, serving as their Senior Vice President for Native American Advancement and Tribal Engagement. I'm actually thrilled to be here and participate. Dr. Chief is keeping me busy, and it's great because I'm seeing a lot of great progress going on, and our goal is to assist the tribal communities, and in this case with food, water, and energy development. And I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm looking forward on what we can do to assist not only the tribes, but in this case, the tribal colleges moving forward in these 3 areas. So thank you, and I look forward to the discussion and learning from this workshop. Thank you, Dr. Chief.
Thank you so much, Mr. Esquera. It's so wonderful to have you here, and we're just so excited to have you join the University of Arizona and support all our efforts in partnering with tribal nations, tribal colleges, and tribal communities. Thank you so much for your support and for being here.
You bet.
So I wanted to provide a little bit of background on our collaboration with Diné College, UC Berkeley, and University of South Florida. I want to introduce the PIs of each institution. Alice Agogino, Maya Trotz, and Rebecca Zargo of USF, and myself, as well as my team. I have quite a number of students and faculty and program coordinators in each of our institutions. So Don Robinson of Diné College, who's the lead at for his institution. So the goals of our partnership is that we want to develop a network of researchers, tribal college faculty, students who are working on food, energy, water challenges in Indigenous communities. And we want to come together to identify the challenges and opportunities that face our communities. And then also work together to identify the best practices to co-innovating with Indigenous communities. Also, we want to identify funding opportunities and work to develop solutions and submit proposals. So in the workshop 1, if you're weren't able to attend, these were the topics that we spoke about in the workshop. looking at the challenges on the Navajo Nation. We were supposed to have the workshop in person at Diné College, but due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we are having it on this virtual space. It worked out well, and then we also were able to talk about how COVID-19 has amplified food, energy, water challenges. We talked about past practices and innovation in Indigenous FEWS. We had an excellent welcome from a medicine man and traditional elders and experts who talked about the net traditional FEWS framework. So as we know, this science already exists in Indigenous communities. These problem-solving approaches already exist. So we want to highlight those and honor those as well. And we talked about existing FEWS systems on Navajo Nation. We also had an excellent panel on decolonized FEWS innovation, because we know that Western science is not always the answer. We want to make sure we honor existing problem-solving approaches. And so we had an excellent panel of individuals who are doing this type of work already. We also learned about how this is happening in K through 12 education, like with the STAR School, and seeing how they're educating their students in a culturally based way in FEWS and STEM, and also that their school is off the grid. And then we had an excellent dialogue about what we can do next, the opportunities that exist, networking, and next steps. One of the things that really came out in workshop 1 is that there is an important holistic ecological perspective that is very similar and parallel to systems thinking. And Perry Charlie and Dr. Begay talked about this and how this holistic thinking is already existing in our communities, where they see the world as interconnected, the feedback loops between all this, the living species and the ecological systems. And so already our people are considering the problem in this holistic way. So we wanted to consider many topics in the process of Indigenous co-innovation to understand how we can achieve sustainability. And so one of the action items that we asked our participants is, how can we put this into action? And so these are the 9 topics that we considered within this context. Anything from sustainable food, energy, and water systems to health, resiliency, looking at multi-generational perspectives, broadening participation, language and culture, digital access, and others. So for this workshop, from workshop 1, excuse me, what the main themes that came out of that workshop was primarily looking at ways to further explore these topics, because our conversations were so rich and we could have gone on for longer than we were scheduled. And so many of the participants said they wanted to find more opportunities to connect within this network, and then also learn more about the opportunities at our various institutions through virtual tours. So the goals for workshop number 2 is that we want to understand from our tribal college experts. They've been working in this field for decades. Diné College is one of the oldest tribal colleges in the United States. And so along with other tribal colleges, they've been doing this, they're the experts. And so we want to understand what they've been doing. What are the best practices in supporting students in this pathway to food, energy, and water systems? We also want to understand what is the research capacity of TCUs. And from those 2 conversations, identify where university and tribal colleges can work together to partner on strengthening that pathway for tribal students, Indigenous students, and other students who want to pursue education, careers, and professional opportunities in food, energy, and water. We held a listening session this week, and many of you probably attended. Thank you so much for attending. We wanted to listen to the students and understand what are the challenges that they face in their pathways. We asked them what inspired them to pursue an education in food, energy, water. And they said anything from their family inspired them, their community, their teacher, or their elder. And many of them said they wanted to go back and help their community. And I believe that's such a strong theme for Indigenous students, is that they want to help their community within their education and research. They stated many of the supportive entities and resources that help them in their journey, and anything from family to clubs and organizations, financial scholarships, and off-campus jobs. They also said they had many challenges. Many of our tribal college students are juggling responsibilities, having family, commuting back and forth long distances, juggling different jobs with school, and then also having a community at their schools. They also stated many technological challenges, such as financing, access to technology, online learning, and access to mentor. But they also had recommendations that were excellent in terms of how we can better support them. And they listed that here, and they said they like to get more financial support, have better mentoring, having a pathway that can be highlighted to their path from undergrad to graduate school, having a network of support, resources for family. Many of our students really are deeply connected, committed to their families, being engaged in research and knowing when those opportunities come up, having expanded library access, institutional support for Indigenous learners, and technology supports. We also asked them, what are goals in pursuing higher education? And the number of highest number of people stated research, giving back to my community, making an impact, getting a better job. So at this time, I want to introduce the first session, and I hope this introduction provided information for you going into workshop number 2. And I'm excited for the first session. So at this time, I want to say thank you for listening. And I will give it over to Neilroy Singer of Diné College and Nikki Tooley of University of Arizona to moderate panel number 1. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Carletta, Dr. Chief. I want to welcome everyone, all our viewers right now. I'm one of the moderators here. My name is Neilroy Singer with Diné College. She Hawatlane and Shle Zohe Bashichin Ashchi Dashiche do Twatbai Dashnale Nat Ani Nez Nasha Diné College do na. So I am the environmental specialist working for the DEI program at Shiprock North Campus, Diné College. My supervisors are Dr. Donald Robinson and Dr. Perry Charlie, Charlie, and I just want to welcome everybody today, and let's get this session started. Thank you.
Yate, Shea, Nikki Tooley, and Isha. Torejit ni nashlan tat nezatni bashish chin, hashkahadzai dashache ado, toheglini a dashanale, and le besto glizin deskis dos edge ijit nasha, a hehet nefahaso kray. Y estoy agradecido de que así como reconozco mi identidad como navajo, también reconozco mi antepasado mexicano.
Yeah, we can stay on for a few minutes if anyone has.
y hay fuerza en la diversidad y hablar el idioma de mis antepasados. Me ayuda a recordar a la familia y la comunidad de donde vengo. Bienvenidos y gracias por participar en este evento. Hi, my name is Nikki Tooley, and I'm a member of the Navajo Nation. I'm from the communities of Blue Gap, Arizona, and Rock Springs, New Mexico. I'm a PhD student at the University of Arizona in the Department of Environmental Science, and I'm part of the Co-InFEWS traineeship, working with Dr. Sharon Megdal and Dr. Carletta Chief. Thank you for your interest and participation in this session. We would now like to introduce you to our panelists.
Okay, our first panelist is Mr. John Doyle. John Doyle was raised and lives on the Crow Reservation in South Central Montana. He's a Crow tribal member. He's served as a county commissioner and a member of the health board and volunteer co-director for the Sakalookie Crow Water and Wastewater Authority. And co-director Doyle led a nearly complete overhaul and renovation of Crow's agency's water and wastewater infrastructure. He's helped raise more than $20 million for this work. He is a founding member of the Crow Environmental Health Steering Committee. Doyle has also helped guide community-based risk assessments, exposures to waterborne contaminants in public, home well, cultural, and recreational water sources. Mr. Doyle also leads community education and risk mitigation efforts on water quality and drinking water security across the Crow Reservation. He's also served as a co-PI of EPA research funding and is currently the PI for NSF and NIH awards for the Little Bighorn College on the tribal college on that's the tribal college on the reservation. He also co-leads research on climate change impacts to travel, water resources, and community health, and mentors. He mentors Crow undergraduates and graduate students. He has also co-authored half a dozen peer-reviewed publications on this work, as well as contributed to the Montana Climate Assessment. Mr. Doyle is a co-founder and active board member of the Crow nonprofit Plenty Doors, which works on economic development for the Crow people. Next.
Dr. Newberry is the chair of science and health at the Tohono O'odham Community College. She is a science educator, research, and program director who values equity in education, environmental sustainability, partnerships, and multidisciplinary approaches to problem solving and knowledge production. She has been a principal investigator on several grants in climate change, energy sustainability, and capacity building. Starting 15 years ago, she developed the TOCC science program using innovative methods and culturally based education. She is a principal investigator on the NSF Teacup STEM grant, Pathways to Indigenous STEM, which aims to increase student success in STEM by strengthening and indigenizing the science curriculum, increasing research capacity, and implementing cultural and responsive academic support for students.
And next we have Dr. Stephen Gischili, he is an assistant professor of environmental science and past chair of the science department and at Navajo Technical University, where he's been teaching courses in environmental science, natural resources, forestry, environmental law, ecology, range management, and special topic courses such as hazardous waste operations and emergency response since 1996. Mr. Gischili's research focuses on climate change, and he currently leads a USDA initiative identifying drought tolerance in pinyon pine on the Navajo Nation. Among other research with pinyon juniper woodlands, he recently conducted 3 faculty research fellowships at the Army Research Laboratory in Maryland, conducting research on using LIDAR for the research on pinyon and juniper. And he also attended the Organization for Tropical Studies in Costa Rica. Steve has served on the NIH Advisory Board for Minority Populations, the Native American STEM Advisory Board, and as an ACES advisor, he earned a BS in biology from Fort Lewis College, an MA in biology genetics from the University of Colorado at Boulder, and now is pursuing a PhD in population genetics from UC Boulder. Steve also owns Diné Bekeya Environmental, an environmental consulting company that conducts work primarily on the Navajo Nation, dealing with National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA compliance.
Another panelist here with us today is Benita Litzen. Ms. Benita Litzen is Director of Diné College Land Grant Office. Ms. Litzen has served in this capacity for 9 years, providing professional experiences in project development for Navajo ranchers and farmers by offering technical service around rangeland management, conservation, planning workshops, and various extensions and outreach programs. In addition to her responsibility to the Navajo communities, she has developed a natural resource certificate program and serves as an instructor for the program's courses at Diné College.
And next we have Christopher Caldwell. Christopher is currently the interim president at the College of Menominee Nation. The college is an accredited bachelorette level institution chartered by the Menominee people. Alumni numbers more than 1,200 individuals holding CMN academic degrees and technical diplomas. More than 40% of all the graduates are enrolled or descendant Menominee, and 70% in total are affiliated with American Indian tribes. Caldwell, a graduate of the college and enrolled member of the Menominee tribe, has also served as a director of CMN's Sustainable Developmental Institute for the past 8 years. He is currently a PhD candidate in Environment and Resources at the University of Wisconsin Madison Nelson Institute. And he also holds a bachelor's degree in Natural Resources from UW-Madison and a master's degree in Environmental Science and Policy from UW-Green Bay. Prior to his leadership role at SDI, Caldwell also works as a Tribal Resources Director, Compliance and Enforcement Officer for the Menominee Tribe. Earlier this year, Caldwell and a Michigan State University colleague were awarded MSU's Community Engagement Scholarship Award and the university's Distinguished Partnership Award for Community Engaged Research.
We are thankful to have these individuals with us today to enlighten us and share with us their experiences and knowledge. We will now move into the questions for each of the panelists. As you notice here on the slide deck, you will see that the question is listed as well as an identified response time to answer the question. For this question, all panelists will be invited to respond with a response.
So 3 minutes for everyone. Be mindful of this again. So we are interested in listening to what you have to say. So here we go. So for Mr. Caldwell, what are the current degrees, course training, and other programs at your college supporting students in FEWS?
Well, Poso Mauni Wia, Chris Caldwell and Aswisian. Greetings to all of you. My name is Chris Caldwell, and I'm calling in from the homelands of the Menominee Nation. So some of the work that we do at the college academically is something I'm becoming more familiar with in my current role as interim president. A lot of the work that I had done at our Sustainable Development Institute was connecting with faculty in the academic side, as well as course trainings. But presently, the degree programs we have related to the FEWS Nexus is in our Natural Resources program, a pre-engineering technology program, which includes a Solar Energy Research Institute, as well as we have an Introduction to Sustainable Development course that all CMN students are required to take, no matter which degree program they're in. This really introduces a systems thinking approach at the introductory level. One of the things that we have been working on over the last few years is the development of an integrated studies in sustainability program to expand off of the theoretical model of sustainability that the tribe uses, or that the Sustainable Development Institute developed with the community within the college 25 years ago. So we're looking at a bachelor level degree program for that. In addition, we've also been working on the development of a sustainable agriculture program to reflect the growing community interest and the momentum behind grassroots organizations, individuals, and even the tribal government in looking at our food systems from that respect, both forested and agricultural food systems. And a more recent development is hiring a geoscience director through an NSF grant to help us explore an associate's degree with a transfer to UW-Madison, and then looking at that as an opportunity to build into water resources or forest hydrology or climatology aspects of that type of program. That one's even more recent in development, so we're a bit away from getting that fully implemented. A large part of my work, as was mentioned before, was my time as director of the Sustainable Development Institute. And we engaged students and faculty at our institution and across the nation in things like the Indigenous Planning Summer Institute and our student internship program, which spanned a number of research projects that were connected to our community and other tribal communities, federal agencies, academic institutions. And so I'll stop there.
Thank you, Mr. Caldwell, for that. And next we will go on to Benita Litson.
Ja, te Donald Squasha, Benita Litson, and Chef, and you can in the Shlon Kachini, Bashashin, Kia Ani, the Shado, Totoni, the Shanella. And I'm thankful for being able to present this morning in regards to the activities and programs that Denny College offers around FEWS. So currently we currently have a bachelor's degree in biology, which really encompasses a variety of programs and disciplines to educate our students to become well-rounded around our natural resources, our water systems, our food systems. Recently, we've just approved a bachelor's degree in agriculture, basically really thinking about where our foods come from, the various parts of the Navajo Nation in regards to, you know, how are we going to be able to sustain our food systems longer term, and really working around what that would look like for our students to be, you know, a student that really thinks about our rangelands, our livestock, our crop production, and figuring out how to infuse that into making sure that we have sustainable food systems. As Carletta had mentioned, you know, with the COVID-19, we really were pushed into, you know, figuring out where we're going to get our foods with the lockdown and things like that, and that really brought to the importance of pushing agriculture forward in our perspective. With that, you know, in integrating student interns, student programs for training, and being able to go out into the community and really understand the community's need and understand the importance of figuring out how to, you know, build that passion within each of the students to start thinking about a career path that integrates agriculture and bringing that back to the communities. So there's various programs that we do have at Denny College that offers that opportunity for students to really integrate FEWS into their disciplinary learning. We have lots of research opportunity in regards to having students understand, you know, hands-on what needs to happen on the ground, being able to collect that information and be able to share that information with community members, and really trying to figure out, you know, the next steps on what needs to happen in regards to planning and making these gaps between the need and what we're understanding in the classroom, and being able to bridge that gap of understanding for our people here on Navajo. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Litson from Diné College. We will now move on to Little Bighorn College's John Doyle.
Good morning, everyone. This is Cara from University of Arizona. I don't see Dr. Doyle on the call yet, and I'm not sure what happened. I'm trying to be in communication with him, but no luck. So
that's fine. We will then move on to Sir Chischili from Navajo Technical University.
Good morning. My name is Stephen Chischili, teach environmental science and natural resources here at Navajo Technical University, and I've been here for a couple of decades now. I enjoy my job very much because we're able to train and educate students in this area of environmental science, which I believe is very important for the Navajo Nation. My clans are Natotene Tachi Inshle, Torikoja Bashichin, Hanayaki Dashinala, and Tabaha Dashiche, Kuta Dinansle. We were recently doing collections of pinyon pine cones up on Black Mesa, and I know that's where Dr. Chief is from. So there's a link there, and we were up there for 3 weekends, 3 days for those 3 weekends each, and we were working up there, and that's the way we do it here at Navajo Tech, is through grant proposal writing, and getting the funding to do research hooks up the students with the interest to assist us in research. And through that research, we're able to give them a job that they enjoy because they are doing research with faculty. And it also allows them to gain experience on how to do field techniques. And also, it also allows them to publish. We're getting a publication soon from one of my students. Her name is Delina. She'll be getting a peer-reviewed publication. It's coming out soon. So we have partnerships with these grants with NAU, Northern Arizona University out of Flagstaff, working on climate change research. Most of the funding that I have right now, 3 grants, are on climate change research, and they're all focused on the Navajo Nation. We do have other grants. I've been fortunate to have an addition to the crew here, Dr. Roy Chowdhury. He comes with a PhD in mine waste cleanup, and his PhD was on the Gold King mine spill in Colorado and New Mexico. And he has a lot of knowledge, and he really is focused and driven, and he writes grant proposals, and he's very successful at it. So I see that as also a big plus. But without taking too much time, other things that we're doing here that allows us to provide educational and career opportunities for students here with the FEWS is the NAU research partnership. We also do an internship with NAU. It's an REU. It was canceled this past summer because of the COVID, but that also allows students to gain 5 credits at Northern Arizona University, and they can transfer those credits back here, and it covers their capstone if they choose to do that, their capstone course here at Navajo Tech, because we feel that it is that important. We also are partnering with Idaho State University and Colorado State University. We're talking with them about graduate school, creating a pipeline for our students to go to those institutions, and that's currently ongoing. We also work with MIT. We have worked with MIT regarding Navajo perspective on water and how they can assist the Navajo tribe with using engineering and technology to address our water issues on Navajo. The same thing with New Mexico Institute of Mining and Technology. We signed an MOU last week for a ceramic filter that they want to install in Navajo to create potable water for Navajo people. and we just signed that agreement, and so we're going to proceed with developing that working relationship with them and see where we can go with this. And also, the last but not least, we're submitting a grant proposal on Monday, and it's called the Navajo Nation Environmental Center. This is probably the hugest thing that I've done and we've done. Dr. Roy Chowdhury is the PI, but it's going to create an environmental center on Navajo. It's going to be an EPA certified analytical lab to serve all of the Navajo Nation and all of Northern Arizona. Through those types of efforts are ways that we're connecting students to graduate school and also to career opportunities. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chichili. That's really good news. Good luck in that. From Technical University, Navajo Technical University. Yeah, means thank you. Next, if we have Teresa Newberry.
Good morning, Skoksialik. Thank you for this opportunity to share about what we're doing at Tohono Community College related to FEWS programming. So please just go to the next slide. So I wanted to just let everyone know where we're located. We're located on the Tohono Nation, and of course, we serve the Tohono Nation. The red is the current reservation, and the dotted lines are the traditional lands of the O'odham people, which extend into Mexico. And the picture is of Walgiwuk, which is also known as Baba Kivri, which is the center of the O'odham Nation. And we're located not far from there. So next slide. So I wanted to highlight that all tribal colleges have a unique mission of cultural preservation and language preservation. So here is our mission. So everything that we do is really focused around fulfilling this mission. We are a land grant institution, and our college is focused on enhancing the unique Tohono O'odham Himdag, which is the way of life. And our programming really emphasizes holistic, high quality education that brings in research, that brings in the community, and everything we've heard this morning really, all the tribal colleges are focused on those areas. So next slide. All right, so we are a 2-year college. We don't have any 4-year degree programs yet, but we do have 3 2-year degree programs. We have the Associate of Science in Life Science, and this is our oldest program. And we have different pathways for students. We have pathways in the health sciences, natural resources, environmental science, and agricultural science. And that's a picture of students gathering shuki, creosote, and in a traditional way. So we do a lot of outdoor activity. We are in a natural setting, which is really a wonderful opportunity. Next slide. So our second 2-year program is the Associate of Arts in Life Science, and this prepares students for degrees or careers in community and public health. It also prepares students for pre-professional nursing and environmental science. Next slide. And our newest degree, and this one is has just been created from the new NSF Teacup STEM grant that we recently received, and that is the Associate of Science in Physical Science. So this really does fill gaps that we had in terms of physics and chemistry. Students can be prepared for careers or pursuing their studies in engineering, physics, astronomy, geology, computer science. And so this is a picture of our night sky. This is one of our astronomy stargazing events. And so we can see the Milky Way there. It's a very, very beautiful setting. We miss being there with this COVID because we're all teaching online, but this was taken last summer. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Dr. Newberry, and to all our other panelists. We will now move on to asking 3 more of our panelists the following question. Kara, could you share that slide deck again?
Can you go ahead and ask the question and keep moving forward while I try to get this shared?
Yeah, let me try to upload it on my system. So what partnerships and other initiatives have been successful in providing educational and career opportunities for tribal college students in FEWS? Again, please keep in mind the 3-minute response, and we will first now hear from Mr. Caldwell.
Also, if you could go to the next slide on my deck. First slide was just a map of the region where we're from, where the Menominee Nation is located. But the second map, our second document, actually is a representation of the theoretical model of sustainability that was developed at the same time the College of Menominee Nation was developed over 25 years ago. And what this was intended to do was represent the Menominee forestry experience in relation to, at that time, that discussion on what sustainable development might look like. And so one of the ways that our tribal leadership focused on how they might explain that story ended up becoming what you see in front of you now, this model of different areas of community life that are important to that story. And then the premise of the model is that we look at how environmental issues might impact across these different dimensions. And if we see something impacting across 2 or more of these dimensions, that's where we want to take a closer look and maybe focus resources in examining what we're seeing there. And so this is actually one of the first transfer agreements based on the work out of the Institute a while back that between the College of Menominee Nation and UW-Madison. And there were quite a few of our CMN students who had received the associate degree at CMN for sustainable development, who then went on to develop bachelor degree programs at UW-Madison. And today we see that impact from this work in that we have faculty members, different leaders in our community at leadership position levels because of this work. And beyond that, there are a number of other transfer agreements that the college has working with our pre-engineering degree with different institutions in Wisconsin. The other part that we're looking at developing is more ways that we interact with our sister tribal college and university in Wisconsin, which is the Lakota Ojibwe College up north. And LCO and CMN are the 2 tribal land grants in the state, while UW-Madison is the mainstream land grant institution. So there's a lot of partnership development in that regard that we're working on. One of the other parts of partnerships or initiatives that are successful in this area is just the work again of the Institute through this model, engaging with partners like Kyle White at Michigan State University. He's now moved on to University of Michigan, but we continue our partnership with him. And these are based more on research and community engagement work that is then connected back to the academic side of our college and other colleges that we work with throughout the state and then across the nation. And I think the success of these transfer agreements is important, but I think it's also important in developing us as a college to begin to offer bachelor level degree programs in these areas, and eventually look at how we can develop our own graduate level degree programs. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Mr. Caldwell. We will now hear from Mr. Tischchili.
Okay, the question is, what partnerships and other initiatives have been successful in providing career education and career opportunities for tribal colleges, students, and FEWS? Isn't this the same question I answered earlier? Anyway, yeah, the way we do it here at Navajo Tech is through grants. Like I was saying, it's research and partnerships. Regarding the Environmental Center, like I mentioned earlier, this is a T grant. I forget what the acronym for T stands for, but it's an NSF grant. And like I said earlier, I forgot to mention, well, I did mention it's being submitted on Monday, but we have letters of support from the president of the Navajo Nation, which is huge, and the 3 universities that I mentioned, Northern Arizona University, Idaho State, and Colorado State, all have supported it. And so have various tribal programs within the Navajo Nation government structure. What's connected to the Environmental Center is the funding to start an environmental science master's degree program here at Navajo Technical University. So I've been trying to get this off the ground for approximately 10 years. And when we first started, or I first started here, the initiative at that time was under a funded grant by the Department of Energy. This is, oh man, it's 25 years now, but that was the most successful grant I've ever had. It ran for 16 years. And the initiative for that grant was to train and educate our own people to address environmental issues on Navajo, in particular, the abandoned uranium mines that are still prolific on our Navajo Nation. And so this Environmental Center is one of the ways that we're going to be doing this, so that we can test our own soils, our own water, different types of media from samples that are collected. Also, we're also working, we have won a planning grant from the National Science Foundation, and that planning grant is for a health physicist degree here at Navajo Tech, so that we can begin training and educating our own people on addressing these radioactive hazards and contaminated sites on Navajo. And we hope to continue developing this degree after we finish out this planning grant. So we are working on these issues right now. Regarding COVID, we have another grant that was submitted. I don't know if it's going to be funded, but through wastewater, human waste, you can detect COVID-19 virus within wastewater. So it will be a way of early detection on Navajo for us to determine whether or not a community has COVID within that community. That's of course for communities that have running water. So that's what we've been doing. There's been 2 students that have finished from the environmental science program here at Navajo Technical University. And those 2 students are the only 2 that I know of that went on to get graduate degrees. They both went to the University of Georgia, and they finished about 4 years ago or 3 years ago. They came home, and they're both working on Navajo right now. So the reason why I'm wearing my mask is because one of my students joined me, and he's sitting right beside me. So that's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Tischchili. Dr. Newberry?
Thank you. So like all the other tribal colleges, we do have a lot of partnerships and grants that really support our work. For my section of the talk, I really wanted to focus on those partnerships that have helped us build curriculum for our students. So the first partnership was with AHAC and all the many tribal colleges, and you can see them on the map here: Northwest Indian College, UTTC, College of the Menominee Nation, Haskell Indian Nations University, Diné College, and of course TOCC. And I'd like to highlight AHAC. AHAC stands for American Indian Higher Education Consortium. And it is really an organizing force between tribal colleges, and it really helps us to co-create these projects. And in this particular project, we created a climate change class from an Indigenous perspective. So next slide. So another project was again on climate change, and this was the Climate Adaptation Mitigation e-learning project. And in this project, they paired social scientists with scientists, and they also wanted to pair universities and tribal colleges. And the idea is to create transdisciplinary curriculum, holistic curriculum. You really need a team approach. And so we created a unit based on water in the Southwest, and we work with elders, and we incorporated traditional ecological knowledge in this unit. So next slide. So another partnership, Southwest Native Lands, and this was another NSF grant that was awarded to the Applied Indigenous Studies Center, our department at Northern Arizona University. And in this project, the idea was to help students learn math in a way that was meaningful for them, in a way where the numbers were real. So it really included field trips out to different sites locally. The classes were run at TOCC, Coconino Community College, and NAU. And it was a 7-credit semester where it was a combined learning experience between math, science, and the culture at each of our respective universities or colleges. And so our themes focused on biodiversity, climate change, water resources. And the students went out and collected, just as an example, water samples at a nearby charco. They learned about the history of the charco and then came back to the college and analyzed the samples. So they got a lot of science and math in that experience. So next slide. So our most recent project was the NSF AHAC Water TCU STEM Success Project. And in this project, we focused on problem-based learning. And these problem-based learnings were designed to really have a cultural component, to really tackle problems that were important for the community. The students were also required to make connections between Western science and Indigenous knowledges. So this was a really powerful project. It was a pilot project, and it was very, very successful and really speaks to our philosophy of teaching and learning at TOCC. So thank you. Just a little few highlights of everything we do.
Well, thank you all for your answers. We will move on to our next slide. And this question is for Benita Litzen. Keep in mind a 3-minute response to keep this moving. What is the role and importance of Indigenous knowledge and community-based scholarship and action in your FEWS curricula?
Wow, this is very important to us. We feel like, you know, Indigenous knowledge is one of the most important things for our students to understand in regards to sustaining our way of life, whether it's our food system, agriculture, growing, you know, our medicinal ways. And it's definitely true to trying to connect a student to understanding who they are as an individual. So it's very, very important to infuse Indigenous knowledge. I feel like one way that we do that here at Dene is we do have several medicine men on campus, traditional educators, and they are well versed in, you know, a lot of the songs and the traditional aspect of doing things, and that's something I think we strongly hold in regard to the work that we do at Dene College. Just an example, I know we were doing, a few years back, we were doing research on ants, but before we could really do the research, we had to do the ceremony that incorporated the ant way, the different songs and the prayers before the research started, and really teaching, having the students who are participating in that research be a part of that ceremony to make sure that they are acknowledging, you know, what they are learning and what they are doing in regards to understanding how ants, you know, co-evolve within on the land with us. And then, you know, the difference in the ants population. I mean, that's an example, in addition to many of the things that we do here as we move forward into research and understanding, like our forestry program. Our forestry research, really understanding, you know, the history behind pinon and juniper and how it's used within, you know, our indigenous people, and understanding why it's important to manage and be able to create plans that would hold those ecological systems in place. And so those are very, very important. A lot of, I think, our hands-on education involving the students in regards to understanding the mechanism of why, you know, the baseline foundation of understanding our indigenous knowledge is definitely important, because, you know, when we do research, a lot of times many of our tribal nations are taken advantage of. And so knowing, you know, the fundamental laws of our people is very important as we move forward into trying to sustain whatever research we're going into, especially around food, energy, and water, because those are a part of our main essential elements in life to continue on. As far as scholarships, many of those are I want to say, finding grants that are able to help our students with internship programs, developing additional scholarship programs to keep the students engaged into what they're doing. As mentioned, a lot of times, a lot of our students are struggling, and so financially it's important to kind of keep them involved with you know, these types of research, so that they are at the top of their game as they move into graduate programs and different career paths. So I say this is very, very important. Thank you.
Yeah, Director Litzen from Dene College. Now we'll move forward to Chris Caldwell from the Menominee Nation.
All right, Waiwanan. So I just put together a few slides that I think represent a lot of the work we do. This the last slide on my deck actually points to what I think with this question about how we engage with Indigenous knowledges, community-based scholarship and action. The theoretical model I talked about previously, it has those components in it. The model itself is a way of thinking about problems or issues and how to develop solutions in a holistic manner. And so if you had seen all those dimensions, they span a number of different areas. And the last slide that would have came up would have shown a satellite photo of our campus where the Sustainable Development Institute is situated. And one of the things that we've done with our campus is to incorporate place-based learning environments, outdoor learning environments. And I think this provides a easily accessible context, oh, there it goes, for ways in which, and so if you look at the bottom of the satellite photo on the left, that's the Institute. The yellow line is actually our trail, our learning path that we have. Kake Mihi Casa. It just kind of outlines walking to where the red dots are, which each represent either a phenology station that we've put in, or climate change research plots on forestry that we're doing. The other areas are educational signage that we have. And really all of that is overlaying onto the concept of place-based research, place-based community engagement, because we feel that the best place to be talking about and doing these things, revisiting what our ancestral knowledge represents is being together in that space, in that context. Of course, one of the panelists mentioned that COVID-19 really impacted programming, and it definitely impacted our programming. A lot of the things we do are Summer Institute based meetings and workshops outdoors, and so we had to restrict that this year, but many times we have visitors, international visitors coming in. We have national collaborators we work with coming in and engaging in workshops with our community members. And so we feel that the context and place is important, but also provides a premise for exchanging knowledges and helping us to understand not only our place, but its context within the global setting as well. And so it is highly important, especially as a tribal college. You know, we have that different setting, that different mindset and mission than other academic institutions. I'll stop there.
Thank you for your responses, Mr. Caldwell and the other panelists. We will now move to the next question, which is, what is your vision for strengthening FEWS capacity at tribal colleges? Again, panelists, please keep your responses, keep in mind to keep your responses to 3 minutes. And we will start with Mr. Chischili from Navajo Technical University.
Well, this was challenging, this question for me, but I think my colleague and I are both in sync regarding our vision, regarding the strengthening of FEWS capacity at our tribal college, Navajo Technical University. Not only do we incorporate traditional ecological knowledge into our courses as much as we can, but before we embarked on collecting the Piñon samples from throughout the Navajo Nation, we also, just as Ms. Benita Litzen mentioned, we had a ceremony done by a DNF specialist, cultural specialist here. And we did it via Zoom for all the students and faculty and administrators that wanted to partake in it, and even outside entities that were interested in it. And so he did it outside. We did it underneath a pinyon pine tree that had green cones on it. And he sang songs. And one of the songs I remember he sang was part of the creation story. And he was singing things into being. And he also did a blessing on the tree with corn pollen. And he showed the students and all of us how to respect your resources in that manner before you go out and collect. You just don't start grabbing needle tissue or things like that out of species when you go out there. There's that perspective of traditional DNF philosophy and knowledge. And he also stated that when you're done collecting cones or any tissue from like needles or anything like that from the different plants you are collecting from. Don't just throw it away. Just don't just throw it in the trash can, or don't just throw it behind your house. You know, he said it's very important that when you're done with them, you take them back to where you collected them. So that was important. And our provost was there, Dr. Bowman, and she was really impressed, because I don't think she's ever really seen that happen at a tribal college or any university that she's been to. So she was thankful that we were doing that, because it shows that we were following our traditional vision and culture and our beliefs. So in terms of strengthening FEWS, we try to incorporate TEK into our curriculum as much as we can. We have traditional elders that we talk to, and they come in as guest speakers from time to time. But this year, since COVID-19 is here, it's harder and harder, but we have been able to get 2 on Zoom to talk to the students. And we have been out to a farm. I know Benito knows this family out in Nahanzad, which is near Upper Fruitland, right by the river. It's a traditional Navajo farm. It's called Navajo Ethno Agriculture. They have their own website. It's a nonprofit. It's owned by a family, and they grow traditional Navajo crops, heirloom crops. And the students and myself and Dr. Roy Chowdhury went out there, and we helped them harvest that field. And part of that effort was a funded USDA grant, which allowed us to hire a student there to help them with the farming during the weekends and when he had time. And he also learned how to make special Navajo foods such as nashjiji and kneel down bread, and how to harvest the different types of produce that were available on that farm. So that's how I think we're strengthening FEWS capacity here at Navajo Technical College. But also, I think it's very important to mention that you also need administrators that have the vision, the shared vision that you have, and they allow you the freedom and the autonomy to pursue what your passion is. And I think when you have that, it really helps, and it makes things much more easier, and it encourages you to do more. And when I say more, you're doing more, not only for your students, but for your tribe, your people and community. Thank you.
Ashe, Mr. Chischili. We will now hear from the perspective of Tono O'odham Community College, Dr. Newberry.
Thank you. So I too had to give this question some deep thought, and I really came up with, it's not about my vision, it's about the vision of the community and the vision of the college as a whole. So I'd like to highlight the outcomes of a visioning experience that we had. It was a 6-month process where we met with community members, students, our institutional partners, and we came up with the 4 vision pillars that are guiding our work right now. And it is currently being supported by a NSF STEM grant. This is the Pathways to Indigenous STEM, Machidak Walk STEM We, which means walking toward STEM learning. So the first vision pillar is community building, and curriculum building. And this really focuses on strengthening our physical science curriculum and online delivery. Our second strategy is related to our instructional strategies in our courses. And again, we're focusing on indigenizing our curriculum. And I'll go into that in just a little bit more about how we're doing that. The third pillar is professional preparedness. So we want to increase workforce internships and research experiences. And then finally, we really wanted to work on bridging and strengthening the pipeline from the high schools to the college, and from the college to the university, with a focus on academic preparedness. So next slide, please. So in terms of our instructional strategies, we're focusing on a lot of different areas: problem-based learning, incorporating Indigenous research in our classroom, continuing with our transdisciplinary approaches, which incorporate TEK and sustainability. We want to increase the amount of research experiences that the students have. And all of this is framed within the Man in the Maze educational model. And so we have a senior cultural mentor who's serving in our program, Mr. Camillus Lopez. He is with us today, and he is guiding us on how to really apply the wisdom in the Man in the Maze in almost everything we do, but really with a big focus on program level assessment, really helping the students learn to use the Man in the Maze as a way to be resilient and move through challenges in their program. So next slide, please. So one part of this is really faculty support and development, because really the faculty are the ones who create the curriculum. And so we have created a faculty learning community. We have an annual professional development called Pathways to Indigenous Education, focusing on models for design in curriculum building. Our mentors are Dr. Greg Cajete, Camillus Lopez, and Dr. Octaviana Trujillo. And this does move throughout the academic year. We have ongoing meetings and support and training and just, you know, talking about what does this mean. This is really a huge topic and is not one that is really something that needs to be studied. It's something that really needs to be developed. So next slide. And finally, and my personal favorite is the Tono Field Study Center. And so really this is creating an outdoor lab for course-based research. We're focusing on phonology. We're hoping the students will be involved in research. And we're currently working on a repository of traditional ecological knowledge and digital educational resources. So especially with COVID, that last area is the one that we can really move forward with now. And again, we're working with Camillus Lopez on creating audio and video file, creating a repository of this knowledge. And we're working with the New Language Center. So this is really directly tied to, you know, language preservation, especially in the area of traditional knowledge. And finally, we've created several new classes in research, Principles of Research in Natural Science, which has an Indigenous research component to it. And so with that, I will pass it along.
Thank you, Dr. Newberry. Now, our final question for Benita first, and then we can open up to the panelists. For this 3-minute, remember the 3-minute response. So on this Strengthening Pathway student session feedback we had recently, any thoughts about how your institution is improving student experiences as highlighted by the listening session?
Sure. I honestly think that we are, you know, really trying to listen to the students in regards to the types of activities they want to be involved in regards to research. And I think one thing that we are improving on might be because of, you know, our leadership in regards to trying to get more hands-on approaches to the way we teach at Diné College, is trying to get most of the faculty to start acquiring research grants that allow students to participate into that experiential learning process. And so that's something I think is improved. I see a lot more programming around student internship, student research interns as we move forward. So I think that's a huge part of how we're improving. The other things are really trying to strengthen our department collaborations within the institution. Just an example, I am the director of the land grant office, and we do a lot of the community outreach and engagement for farmers and ranchers, and what types of research is needed for our people to move forward. You know, things like, I'll use one as an example for our research on forestry is the ranchers are indicating that there's no more understory forage for their livestock, and the nation's telling them that, you know, you need to cut back on your livestock. And so, you know, there's a lot of good and bad things in regards to both sides. So what types of management has to happen to allow the forest to kind of restore itself, in addition to trying to you know, educate the producers in regards to what the understory should look like, and alongside with how do we rebuild the understory when we have encroaching trees. So trying to create those research that is applied and applicable to our community members, and making sure that our students are involved with that type of decision making, because a lot of the studies that we do has to go through our community's support, you know, get tribal chapter resolutions, getting the Navajo Nation different departments to be behind you in regards to these types of research opportunities on the Navajo Nation. And sometimes that's the timeliest process to hinder us. And I think those are the areas that we definitely need to improve, is working with trying to expedite processes in regards to like permits, NEPA analysis, those type of things that needs to happen for research to continue within the time frame that you might be given, 2 or 3 years. So definitely, I think the NAE College is looking into the various challenges that we do have, and figuring out ways that we can improve upon those, and definitely create more successful programs for our students to continue to you know, grow and start filling those career gaps as we move forward on the Navajo Nation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Litzen. Is there another panelist who would like to also give a response to this question? If there is not, we can move into the Q&A. Mr. Chischili, Mr. Caldwell, Dr. Newberry. Okay, so we can go ahead and move on to the next portion of our panel, moving into the Q&A. And so this is the section of the session that is open up to all participants who are in this session to now. You heard a bit of the background and some of the responses from that our panel members had to offer. And so if there are any pressing questions that you might have for our panels, we now open up the opportunity for you all to do so. You have 2 options to present your question. You can either put it in the chat section, or you could unmic yourself and verbalize your question so that the panelists could hear you and give you a response.
Tikki, I have a question.
Yes, Alice.
One of the goals of this workshop is to create an alliance where we can learn about challenges and best practices from each other. And your panelists were amazing and have created their own alliances. So I'd like to ask them, is there a value in combining forces across these different initiatives? And how might we go about doing that if there is?
All right, so any of the panelists, if you'd like to give a response to that question, thank you.
Can take a shot at it. I think there is value. I think anytime that there are tribal people, tribal organizations working to advance their nations, any way that we can share our experiences together, any way we can reestablish these old networks of how we've shared knowledge is important. We have a shared experience in terms of colonialism and the American settler expansion experience, the treaty era, the boarding school era, blood quantum today. I think when we look at food, energy, water systems, that's a part of it, but we all know that there's a lot more complexity that's impacting our communities to make them sustainable and resilient moving forward. So I think in terms of how, like, this is a good example of sharing these different networks and bringing them together and seeing what might come out of it. And I think keeping in mind that tribal colleges have a certain mission, and I'm kind of looking at Dr. Chief's question, but also when we determine what we want to do, I think that then better guides us and prepares us to determine who we work with, especially in terms of academic partnerships, federal agency partnerships with tribal colleges, because I see tribal colleges and institutions as not necessarily gatekeepers between the communities and external entities, but facilitators, sometimes protectors in case of bad relationships that might come out of working with mainstream academic institutions. We know that's happened in the past, and so I think efforts like this are intended to address those issues.
Thank you for your response, Mr. Caldwell. And as was directed to us, there has been a question that came up in the chat from Dr. Chief that states, what is the best way to work with the tribal college and building a university TCU partnership? Is there a panelist who would like to give a response to that question?
Sure, I could. This is Benita. I
Thank you.
think every tribal college is uniquely different. And it's kind of challenging to work with us because we definitely are structured in many different ways, I want to say. For instance, we've just went through a change. We have a provost, we've gone to the various schools systems, and we have School of STEM, we have School of, you know, the different schools that we do have. So it's kind of challenging. I think one of the best ways to reach out to tribal colleges is probably reaching out to either your chairs or your provost or your deans, however that's set up. And then understanding, you know, the different, or I guess the similarities in the types of research or the types of partnership that you want to establish. I think from there, they're going to point you to the right person in regards to who you would work with at the institution. And sometimes with us tribal colleges, we do have a lot of turnover or moving up and down with the college system. So that could be challenging to reach, you know, the right person within our tribal colleges. But I would really advocate for working with either your deans or your provosts, and then moving forward into having them introduce you to different programs within the college.
Thank you, Ms. Litzen. And we have another great question here. And so previously in this session, we heard President Caldwell state that the Menominee College requires students to take a sustainability course. Are there any of the other panelists at your institutions that require their colleges to have a FEWS required course? Are there the sustainability related course that you could see to be a requirement?
I can answer that question.
Thank you,
Yes, at our institution, all science students have to take environmental biology. And that is really kind of the foundation of our, what we call our Pathways program. And it creates a cohort of students. And in that class, we really focus on environmental issues, across the board, from environmental health to water to climate change to biodiversity. And I think it's unusual that our program requires that, because oftentimes, so for example, if you're in a health-related field, oftentimes you have your own track. But so far, and I have to admit, it was my idea. And so far, so good. It's really hard to get all of the units in, you know, for the students, but that is one class that I think is so important, because environmental issues are important across all areas, regardless of your eventual professional track. And that is the course that we really do focus on incorporating a lot of traditional knowledge and really creating this transdisciplinary approach.
Thank you, Dr. Newberry. Is there any other questions that anybody would like to ask before we start to close up this session? Okay. Well, thank you very much to all our panelists who have come to share their time with us today. We'd like to draw your attention back to our PowerPoint slide deck being loaded here about some next steps. And so our next steps, we'd like to draw your attention that there will be a November workshop, the Native American Pathways to Higher Education Careers in Food, Energy, and Water Systems, as well as this opportunity for the Alliance Opportunities Broadening Career Paths in Food, Energy, and Water Systems with and within Native American communities. And so these will be some of the things for you to keep a lookout for with more information that will be coming your way. Again, thank you very much to all of our panelists, and also Neil, my co-moderator, for joining us today, and all the participants who have taken your time to all come together in this workshop to be able to learn some great information about a lot of the work that is being done at these institutions that have joined us today. Again, we'd like to give you a reminder that in November, we will have another workshop, and that will be the Native American Pathways to Higher Education and Careers. And so this will be coming your way again. Please keep an eye out for this. We'd love for you to join us for that November workshop as well. Again, there is a link here to visit the Co-InFEWS workshop for more information. And you can also go to this link here and to find out more information or to recollect some of the biographies of our panelists here today. And finally, we'd like to remind you that we have the second session of this workshop that will begin in a few minutes here at 11 Pacific PDT time. So please join us for that session as well. Again, thank you very much to every one of our panelists and to all the participants for joining us here for this first session of this workshop.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Wawanan, thank you.
I second
Thank
the
you.
thanks, and I thank Neil and Nikki for moderating the session, and I thank Mr. Esquera and Dr. Carletta Chief for introducing and welcoming everyone. So I just want to say that we will leave the Zoom live for anyone who wants to stay on this link during the break, and we will return in 30 minutes. That's going to be 11 o'clock Pacific time for the next panel. And the next panel discussion is titled Pathways to Fuse Degrees. And our panelists are Mark Bauer from Diné College, Daniel Wildcat from Haskell Indian Nations University, Scott Halliday from Navajo Technical University, Shandine Pete from Salish Kootenai College, and Scott Cowell from the University of Arizona. So once again, thank you so much to our panelists for that rich discussion, and we'll see everybody back in 30 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I really enjoyed that panel discussion. It's just amazing the work that you are doing at the tribal colleges. And it's every year seems like a lot of progress is being made at each of your institutions. And I was really inspired by Stephen talking about the Environmental Research Center and Teresa talking about her NSF teacup, and Chris Caldwell talking about the sustainability program. And I was wondering, do you, in developing these really large centers, do you work with, do you build upon like an existing partnership and that sustain through all of that until you get to these larger research efforts? Or is it like a conglomeration of different partnerships?
Well, from my perspective, I think a lot of it has to do with the vision of the institution, and we just realized that at this time it's ripe for us to pursue the Center for the Environment, the Navajo Center for the Environment, and we can, should we win this funding for the center, it'll truly allow us to leverage more research funding from other grants to do research on Navajo regarding many different issues. Thank you.
Yeah, like Steve said, our mission for the Institute comes from the work of the college with tribal leaders back in the day. And those are basically, I think, what I would consider our primary partners. And from that connection, we are able to go out and develop relationships through the Institute with, like the Forest Service was one, focusing on the forestry management that we do at Menominee, and how do we convey that out and share that with other tribal nations that are conducting forest management or research. And from there, it just builds and we leverage. So we get a small amount of money from the college, and that's used to leverage into all of the grants that we secure, from NSF to USDA to BIA. And it, sometimes we're the prime awardee, sometimes we are sub-awardee to the larger universities, depending on what kind of resources we have to help support that work.
Can I mention something, Carletta?
Oh yeah, this is, I'm sorry it sounded so formal, but we're actually in a break. But I was just like really inspired. But yeah, go ahead.
Like
this
what?
Is a great conversation.
You know, Steve knows I'm here at Navajo Tech as well. And we've developed the Center for Advanced Manufacturing here through the NSFT. We've gotten, you know, nearly $10 million over the last 10 years. And, you know, it certainly didn't start out with big money. It started out getting your toe in the door, getting your foot in the door, getting your leg in the door, you know, and building those partnerships up until you have the capacity to do the next level, right? And always leveraging. Well, you know, you got us to this point, and that's great, but we want to do this, and we need this to do that. And oh yeah, we got to that point, we need this much more to do this. And then as we create that track record and we start building, you know, it grows and grows. And like Stephen said, we can't do this without our administrative, you know, buy-in. The Navajo Nation came to us, said, we want you to bring metal additive manufacturing to the Navajo Nation, right? So that was, you know, well, you know, the Navajo Nation themselves are asking us to do that. We have pretty good partnerships along the way, but they had to grow and things like that. And with working with other tribal colleges, they aren't as large as ours. A lot of them aren't capable of growing to, especially in the speed that we have. I think we're pretty unique at Navajo Tech, pretty unique in that our administrators allow us to grow and pursue these things for the sustainability of the tribe. All of our funding from government agencies are, we want you to produce great students, and then we want to take them. Well, who's left to run the tribe? Who's left on the reservation? There's, you know, they're taking our best and our brightest. So, you know, it's those partnerships that once we get a sustainable pathway to you by creating our own infrastructure, you know, and take care of the sustainability in personnel for the tribe is, you know, that is a huge thing.
Oh, that's a very good point about the brain drain.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like what Stevens said about his, you know, they're pursuing the environmental center, and, you know, that, well, you know, we need those jobs on Navajo for Navajo people. Why are we bringing in outsiders to do this work who are going to leave that, you know, and just contribute to the unemployment opportunity, you know, situation here on Navajo? And with education and these jobs, there are so many technical jobs below that can be filled. So it's not only the research level jobs, but that provides the technicians, and that provides other jobs. And then for every technical job, you create 3 support kind of jobs.
Yeah, the labor workforce development is important. Yeah. Okay.
So all of that has to be taken into account.
All right. Well, I'm not sure if the panelists have to go, but yeah, it's just, this is still a break. So feel free to leave if you need to. And just a space for people to keep talking if they like.
Yeah, I'd like to just, I'm going to take a little break and then come back at 11, but I just want to just say that it's the same at TOCC. We start with the small grants, and we build relationships, and we see what works and what doesn't work. And so a lot of the partnerships that I talked about were really small grants. The PBL project, I think $15,000, but it's really important to leverage all the different funding sources. So I think the faculty who are successful in these areas, they kind of, you know, look at the different funding sources and see how they can work together. And then also always following the guidance of the community and administrators too, really. So we have to really be in alignment with the vision and the, you know, current, I guess, priorities of the institution. So I just wanted to, you know, add that in the mix just to give you the fuller picture that it's really pretty much the same, I think, at all tribal colleges. And I like what Scott said, that all tribal colleges are a little bit different in their development in different areas. I mean, we're still working a lot on our curriculum at TOC because, you know, we're probably about medium in terms of the age of tribal colleges, but we're not one of the older tribal colleges. So, well, this is a wonderful session. Thank you so much. I am coming back at 11, but I think I'll take a little break right now.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to say thank you to everyone for this session. It was valuable to me and it was fun. And also I'd like to reiterate what Scott just said. He's been in this game a long time, and he's built it from, I remember when he was here almost 20 years ago starting out. So he's coming a long way, and he knows a lot about grantsmanship now. So thank you. And Carletta.
Oh.
Just email me your address and I'll send you some.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I just asked Carletta if she wants some pinions, and she said yes right away. We'll see you guys.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Oh.
I had a comment on some of the sort of recent discussion, if I may.
Please.
So I think Scott and maybe Professor Chief's comments were one about sort of the networks and communication and try to figure out what works. And I was just coming off of another, and I joined late today, but another discussion on thinking about when we develop the technology grants or technology platforms and the data that's required to share information and maybe address some of these questions around brain drain or lack of resources. For me, in some of the work that I've done, the focus on trying to keep tools as open and accessible, and that's really, really challenging, but trying to keep that open source platforms for sharing whatever data comes out of projects that people can pick up where other people left off, perhaps. And I think that that's something to consider when grants are being submitted, and thinking about those open source tools, and thinking about how those open source tools enable maybe sharing across colleges, universities, and applications. And so I think that's just something I took from some of those comments, and maybe based on Scott Halliday's comments as well.
Thank you. That's one of the goals of the networking that we're doing with these series of workshops, are to identify initiatives like that. We are working to put together a proposal that would include an alliance of the different networks and repositories. So thank you. So Patrick is going to moderate the next session. I see you're there.
Yes. Hi, Dennis.
Do we have?
Hi, good to see you.
Oh yes. No, you don't.
What was the question?
Has our other panelist, Joe Ree, arrived yet?
I've been in contact with her over email, just on some minor details, but I think she'll be here by the time frame 11.
So Jory has been on and off. It looked like she was having some difficulty with her technology.
No worries.
So shall we, unless the break, anyone else wants to share anything, should we test out our slides?
Yes, I think that is a great idea. Do you want to go into a breakout room to do this, or do you just want to do it? Oh, and Dr. Wildcat's on. Hello. So it looks like our panelists who we asked to join us 15 minutes early have either been in session the whole time or are joining us now. So, Patrick, I just chatted you a question, and
yeah, that's fine.
Curious to know. Okay, thanks very much.
And I guess for the flow, I just really would like to get the introductions out of the way, so to speak, and then let the questions kind of float around and add to the discussion.
Do people see my slides?
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick.
Yes.
Hi, Deb.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Hey, Dr. Wildcat, how you doing?
Hey, Patrick, how are you? Good to see you, Patrick. Yes.
So we really took your comment last time about not using pipeline to heart.
Good, thank you.
So we really value your wisdom. So good to see you. We had Joseph Brewer talk at our school last week.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that. Yeah.
We had record number of attendance. Cara, we had like nearly 100 people, right?
I think it was 192. It was nearly 200.
Oh, nearly 200. Yeah.
There you go. One of Haskell's finest.
Yes. Tribal college to university is such an example.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, you don't have to worry about me uploading slides because I don't have any slides to upload. I will just tell stories.
That's the best way. Love your stories. I'm so excited to have you on our panel.
Well, thank you for the invitation. I'm really looking forward to this. The first panel, by the way, was marvelous. I thought they did an excellent job. They covered a lot of territory and, you know, they're so complementary to each other. You're all dealing with the same challenges, the same struggles. And your question, you know, what do we gain when we come together? It's immediately obvious. We gain, you know, the wisdom of our distant relatives. They may be the other side of the mountain, but they know something we don't know. We probably know something they don't know, and you begin to share. Yeah. It makes our work easier.
Yeah.
Patrick, did you want to try your slides just to make sure the technology is working?
I do not think I had any slides.
So yeah, I'm driving the PowerPoint, and when my computer doesn't shut down PowerPoint on me. So it looks like, so we had asked our session 2 panelists to zoom in about 15 minutes early, and I think everybody's here except for Mark Bauer from Diné College. So when Yale gets back, maybe we can go over to a little breakout room and chat, or otherwise we can just chat here. I'm not the host, so I can't throw people into a breakout room.
Yeah,
I'm here. You want to do a breakout room, or should we?
No,
Do you mind, just so that we can do a quick orientation with the panelists? Here, I'll put in the chat who to throw.
I think we're also missing Joe Ree.
Yes, she's not here yet. So yeah, I just put the names of everybody that I can see, and then when Mark Bauer and Joe Ree get here. And I'm texting Joe Ree to see if everything's okay, because she was on and off earlier. So to our panelists, Yael is going to put us into a breakout room. So you'll see something on your screen that says, you know, accept, or, you know, leave this room, go to the breakout room. I forget what it says, but if you'll just agree to do that, we'll all meet in the breakout room and chat real quick.
Okay, is Joe Ree here?
Not yet, no.
Okay, so I'll.
Oh, but Mark Bauer is here now.
Yeah, I've put Mark Bauer.
Oh, Joe Ree just added as well.
Oh, great.
She's listed as a guest. I don't know if you wanted her to be a co-host.
I don't know that we need that. Alice, are you going to join us in the breakout?
Yeah.
Daniel, I see you still here. Did I miss moving you to the breakout room? I'll try again.
So you can see my slides, but it's in speaker mode, right?
I can see your slide in, I
It's
don't see the
presentation
notes.
mode.
I think it's in presentation mode.
Oh, okay, so you can see the whole slide and not the
I
next
see
slide.
the whole slide, yes.
Great,
You
okay.
want to advance just once to make sure it's all good?
Can see this, I can see the presentation slides. So
we're good, thanks.
Like a PowerPoint.
Great, thank you.
All right, thanks, Alice.
I know you have to keep 2 monitors up or 2 computers up, Cara, to see what everyone else sees.
I do.
Sometimes unsettling not to know.
Yes, I like having that second screen up so that I know what everyone else sees. I think we did a wonderful job starting on time last time, and I have 1 minute till. So Alice, the timing is all you.
Well, I actually took time to start. Welcome to the second session of today's workshop on a series of workshops on Indigenous co-innovation of food, energy, water systems, training students to co-design with Indigenous communities using systems thinking. This workshop is part of a 2-workshop series, and we'll have another one in November. Today, we'll talk about tribal college and university partnerships in Co-InFEWS, innovations in food, energy, water systems. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce the co-PIs on this series of workshops. My name is Alice Egagino, and I'm a professor of mechanical engineering at Berkeley and also education director of the Blum Center for Developing Economies. I'm joined by co-PIs Maya Trotz and Rebecca Zarger, who are at the University of South Florida. You heard this morning from Carletta Chief from the University of Arizona and Don Robinson from DNA College. And I'd like to note that our workshop was originally to be held at DNA College, but they hosted our first session that we did in the virtual world. And brief summary of where we're at for context, the Co-InFEWS goals are to develop networks of researchers co-working on FEWS challenges in tribal nations. And that means networkers that include community members, environmental professionals, InFEWS researchers, educators, and students. And our goal of this network is to identify collectively the challenges and best practices working with and within Indigenous communities, and identifying funding opportunities and developing solutions and submit proposals. And we're well on our way to achieving many of these goals, and we'll be adding to that today. As a point of context, in our first workshop, we looked at the broad background of the context, challenges, and best practices. And you can see on this list some of the sessions that we held in our first workshop. All of these workshops are recorded and with their slides posted. So if you weren't able to go, please go to the website if you want to listen to them. I found them quite astounding, and I learned quite a bit. Of special importance, I think, was Dr. David Begay's perspective on holistic ecological perspective of Indigenous thinking and looking at the natural interconnectionships of everything, particularly in food, energy, water systems. We also held breakout sessions, and these are some of the topics in the breakout sessions. And the idea with each breakout session is they were to have action items of where each group wanted to move forward. Sustainable food, energy, water systems, health and well-being, resiliency to COVID-19 and other pandemic and potential disasters, FEWS sovereignty and environmental justice, multi-generational perspectives, STEAM, science, technology, art, and mathematics education and broadening participation, language and cultural barriers, digital transformations in access and development. And this session that we have today focuses a lot on the STEM idea, the STEAM idea, education and broadening participation, but it has pieces from all these other breakout sessions as well. Our agenda in the second session of today is to focus on pathways to FEWS degrees. I'll do an introduction and then we'll have a panel discussion with Q&A. Our goals are to understand these pathways for Indigenous students advancing from tribal colleges into higher education and careers in food, energy, water systems. But we want to understand and see how we can leverage the research capacity of tribal colleges in FEWS and partnerships, cross opportunities for universities, tribal colleges, and faculty and students to work together to partner in research and educational opportunities. And we wanted to make sure that we could hear from the students themselves as contextualizing where we go today. And Carletta this morning, if you were at the early session, briefly summarized this, but we listened to a listening session where we identified what inspired them in terms of community, family, teacher, and elders, and the importance of wanting to give back as a motivation. They talked about what supportive infrastructures they needed to be successful, as shown in the pie chart here. And then also, what are the challenges? And it was interesting to find out that there was a lot of juggling going on, trying to balance family, job, commuting, school, and building community at their own school. And then the challenges of technology, even before COVID-19, are just exacerbated by what happened. But they came up also with recommendations of a pathway for success. And you see that in the pathway that we see here. And I think we'll touch on these interventions that in our discussion today. We also asked them what their goals were. Why are you pursuing higher education? And so there were a whole mix of goals, but this word map kind of shows you where the highlights were: the research, giving back to the community, but also the career opportunities and a better job were important to the energy, water systems, and the environment. So with that, I introduce our fabulous moderators today. Patrick Naranjo is a member of the Santa Clara Pueblo. He is the director of the American Indian Graduate Program at UC Berkeley. He holds a bachelor's degree from Haskin Indian Nations University and has a master's from UCLA in American Indian Studies with an emphasis on contemporary tribal cultural property protections. He's a very active member within his home community. His intentions are to break the historical barriers that are associated with Native students. The new generation can see themselves fully succeeding in prestigious institutions of higher education and work on Native-specific research. He is joined by Jo-Ree LaFrance, who is a doctoral student at the University of Arizona in the Department of Environmental Science. She comes from the Crow Reservation located in southeastern Montana and uses the intersection of her background in earth sciences and Native American studies to focus on water quality issues on a reservation. Jo-Ree's PhD research aims to understand the contaminant behavior in the indigenous food, energy, water security and sovereignty nexus in the Little Bighorn River watershed. So let's all thank our moderators. And I leave it over to you.
Sangiti, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Patrick Naranjo. Like Alice had mentioned, I'm the new director for the American Indian Graduate Program. And a lot of my philosophy behind running the graduate program is to bring my Native student experience, right? Which I think will really set the discussion for today's panel. But let's get right to it. I really would like to complement this morning's session and create another meaningful venue. So let's just jump right into some of the introductions of our panelists and get into some questions for today. So I would like to, well, Jo-Ree, would you like to say anything?
Yes, thank you so much for having me, and thank you to all those who attended the session, the first session this morning, the amazing session and panelists. It was a great discussion, and thank you for those who are attending the session that we are having now. Shora balaja ijin machilishuk bishbala dupat piligil achbitoko. My name is Joy LaFrance. I come from the Upsalaga Nation. I was born and raised on the Crow Reservation in southeastern Montana. I am a third-year PhD student at the Department of Environmental Science at the University of Arizona, and I come from the Greasy Mouth clan, and I'm a child of the Tides of Mundo clan. So thank you so much for being here. We're excited to hear what our panelists have to say. Without further ado, I'll hand it over to Patrick so we can start introducing our panelists.
Thank you so much, Jo-Ree. Yes, so let's get started. Introducing Dr. Bauer, Mark Bauer. is a professor at the School of STEM at Diné College, where he teaches research methods, public health, and mathematics. His research areas focus with NIH, USDA, NSF, and other funding areas. He's included diabetes management, cancer screening, response to uranium mining exposures, HIV/AIDS, substance abuse prevention, availability and affordability of healthy foods on the reservation, the nutrition status of Head Start children, the promotion of family gardens within their area. His current work is on testing a school gardening intervention where he runs a successful summer research enhancement program to teach public health research methods to undergraduate Navajo students and support their participation in internships in a variety of programs serving Navajo communities in areas of diabetes, cancer prevention, and promotion of wellness in general. Currently, he co-directs the Navajo NARCH partnership with Northern Arizona University, which promotes a pathway from high school to graduate school in the field of public health. Dr. Bauer.
Next, we have Dr. Wildcat. Dr. Daniel Wildcat is a Yuchi member of the Muskogee Nation of Oklahoma. His service as a teacher and administrator at Haskell spans 34 years. In 2013, he was the Gordon Russell Visiting Professor of Native American Studies at Dartmouth College. He has served as an adjunct faculty for the Block School UMKC for the past decade. Dr. Wildcat received his bachelor's and his master's degrees in sociology and from the University of Kansas, and an interdisciplinary PhD from the University of Missouri at Kansas City. In 1994, he helped form a partnership with the Hazardous Substance Research Center at Kansas State University to create the Haskell Environmental Research Study Center as a nonprofit Native American research center to facilitate 1, technology transfer to tribal governments and Native communities, 2, transfer of accurate environmental information to tribes, and 3, research opportunities to tribal college faculty and students throughout the United States. He is also the author and editor of several books: Power and Place, Indian Education in America, along with Vine Deloria Jr., Destroying Dogma, Vine Deloria's Legacy on Intellectual America with Steve Pavlik, and his most recent book, Red Alert, Saving the Planet with Indigenous Knowledge, suggests current environmental issues will require the exercise of indigenous ingenuity, and wisdom of human mankind is to reduce the environmental damage underway. He is a co-author on the South Great Plains chapter of the 4th National Climate Assessment as well.
Representing Navajo Technical University today, we have Harold Scott Holliday. Scott Holliday has been at the Navajo Technical University since 2003 and is the coordinator of the Navajo Tech University Center for Advanced Manufacturing. Mr. Halliday has been instrumental in the growth of NTU's engineering programs, which today are the only TCU engineering programs to be ABET accredited. Mr. Halliday has helped develop AAS, BAS, and BS programs at NTU, as well as advanced manufacturing lab that rivals any traditional university's structure. Mr. Halliday's goal is to provide the very same opportunities for Navajo and Native American students in general at a TCU that would be available for any larger university and provide support for education, research, and economic development.
Next, we have Dr. Shandeen Pete. He was raised in Arley, Montana on the Flathead Indian Reservation. His mother is Salish and his father is Navajo. At the University of Arizona, he completed a Master's of Science in Geology and a Doctorate of Education in Curriculum and Instruction. Dr. Pete has been working at Salish Kootenai College in the Natural Resources Division since 2008, where he also co-founded the first hydrology program among the tribal college system. He currently serves as the director of the Indigenous Research Center at SKC. Dr. Pete is seeking to advance understandings of Indigenous research methodologies from Salish philosophical commitments. His approach to teaching and research seeks to harness the cultural values and knowledge of his community.
And finally, joining us from the University of Arizona, we have Dr. Scott Cowell. Dr. Cowell teaches environmental science at the University of Arizona. He is very involved in outreach to community and tribal colleges. In 2019, Dr. Cowell received a Provost Strategic Initiative grant to foster 2+2 programs between community tribal colleges and the university. Previously, while employed at Pima Community College, Dr. Cowell participated in outreach programs for chemistry and underrepresented communities. He has collaborated with ADR to teach students with disabilities and represented chemistry on STEM outreach days. In 2016, Dr. Cowell received the Pima Community College Outstanding Faculty Adjunct Award. Welcome all of our panelists here today. We seem to be doing a very good job keeping time. And now I would really like to jump into the questions and some very meaningful dialogue for our panelists. So welcome. Maybe just to start the conversation, what are the current degrees, courses, training, and other programs at your college supporting students in food, energy, and water systems FEWS? Perhaps beginning with Dr. Bauer, if you'd like to take that question.
Yes, thank you. So I have been here at Dannett College for about 40 years and been involved in a variety of different areas, but currently we've been building programs in public health. Public health is related to food through nutrition. It's related to energy through the various impacts that energy can have on the environment and on human health, and definitely on water as well, so that it looks at human wellness in general. The different programs that we have at the college include a number of certificates and associate degrees and bachelor degrees. We have a lot more degrees than that, but these were the ones that I felt were lined up with the interest of this panel. So we have certificates, certificate programs, which are a little shorter in GIS and irrigation and natural resource. I've been involved in the public health one, and we definitely designed this certificate to help community health workers who are stationed at all the chapters across the Navajo Nation and are like first responders in a number of ways in their communities. So that certificate is available for them. It's also something we're providing to high school students through concurrent dual enrollment, dual credit programs. So that's one of the ways that we're trying to provide that pathway a little further down. Associate degrees, we have agroecology and environmental science. We have pre-engineering, and public health is the one that I have worked with the longest time. We've had that associate degree for a number of years, but we used that as a launching point to build a bachelor degree in public health, which is kind of surprising to me, has vastly increased the number of majors in that area. So I think that it's filling a valuable need. And this degree is also able to connect with master's degrees in different regional universities, but I'll talk more about that on that next slide. But we also have an agricultural science bachelor degree developed now, which I think is going to be very valuable as a way for students to connect really directly with, you know, how Navajo people traditionally raised food through animals, plants, you know, ranching and farming in various areas of the Navajo Nation are very, very important. On the following slide, you'll see some of the supporting programs then that help these be actual pathways, particularly in the public health area. We have a partnership with NAU to do a Navajo NARCH, which is a Native American Research Center for Health. And in this program, we're engaging high school students in activities providing dual credit in some areas where we can get that going, and providing support for undergraduates through internships, summer programs, research projects of different kinds, and partnering with universities. I think that's been one of the most important things that's helped our program become an actual pathway, is through engaging with Navajo graduate students at universities in the area, who then come back to help us with some of these activities with the undergraduates and the high school students, providing a real cycle then of students going out, getting education, and coming back and re-engaging with their communities. The research that allows us to to provide these opportunities is in areas that are relevant to community and to the topic of this panel, I think, through school gardening programs, trying to show how a school garden, along with an appropriate curriculum and working with parents and families, can actually end up improving nutrition. Our summer program provides opportunities in tribal programs, and students actually get to work in their own community, in their own field, before they graduate from us and go off to a university where they get further enhancement, but they already know what they could be coming back to, which I think is the important part there. And other collaborations that we have with the Navajo Department of Health. Recently, we completed a needs assessment for the Navajo Nation in that area of maternal and child health. And all of our senior level students were able to participate in putting that report together. So those are a quick summary of the pathways available at Gannett College in that area of public health, and as it relates to some of the food, energy, and water topics.
Thank you so much. So to maybe begin the discussion, this could also go to Dr. Wildcat. What are some of the current offerings at Haskell that support college students with food and water systems? Dr. Wildcat? We could also maybe pivot, and would Scott, would you like to maybe answer some of that, since complementing what are some of the efforts at Dene?
Scott Halliday? Got two Scotts here. So.
Yes, excuse me, Scott Halliday.
Okay. So at Navajo Tech, Steve Chischili had mentioned earlier in the day, we have environmental sciences. We actually just got funded through NSF to start an environmental engineering program, electrical engineering program here for energy and energy systems program. Actually, our industrial engineering and mechanical engineering programs, I would say, are also part of the food, energy, and water. We've been involved in a couple of projects that include food manufacturing and advanced materials and additive manufacturing for food processing, and as well as printing bio stuff for food. So we have several programs here that are integrated with this. We also work a lot with NNSA, part of Department of Energy, in various capacities, working with energy systems, energy storage, and those kind of things, and manufacturing in general. So that's pretty much what we have here at Navajo Tech.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Wildcat, would you mind going next and giving us a little insight on your experience at Haskell answering this question? Dr. Wildcat?
I don't know if you can, if you can hear us, Dr. Wildcat.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Go ahead.
Yes. C'est la guerre. So you have YouTube. Kansas office for my teaching responsibilities at Haskell Indian Nations University, United States. We serve all federally recognized Native nations in the United States, incorporated Alaska villages, and any given semester we have, 125 to 140 federally recognized American Indian and Alaska Native villages represented on our campus. Usually 40 of the 50 states. Incredible intertribal institution. Haskell has several degrees to this discussion. Most prominently, we have an environmental science degree, and that environmental science degree is a baccalaureate degree. We also offer an associate of science degree in natural science, and we offer a community health. Our other baccalaureate, complementary to the overall kind of discussion we're having here today about food, energy, and water. So we have a lot of students in our baccalaureate program, our Indigenous and American Indian and Indigenous Nations program here at Haskell. And it is a program where we really advance interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary scholarship. So we're really trying to get our students to honor our own ancient intellectual traditions. You know, we never had disciplines that were in or, thought in boxes, and yet many of our institutions are kind of structured that way. But we like to think of ourselves as moving towards a more holistic, integrated approach to undergraduate school of business. We offer a baccalaureate degree in business. We offer a baccalaureate degree in elementary education, and of course, Indigenous and Americans. We talk about the very issues that we're addressing today. I'd say one of the strengths in federal grant programs with NASA, with NSF, and that's something I'll talk about in more detail. Those undergraduate research opportunities that we can offer in TCUs are invaluable in building professionals, technology professionals, their communities. So I think that's one of the
Thank you so much, Dr. Wildcat. Moving right along the agenda, Shandon, what are the current degrees, training, and programs offered at Salish Kootenai College in terms of food and water systems?
All right, can everybody hear me fine? Give me the thumbs up. I see one thumbs up. You're the only one that can hear me? All right, there's a couple more. All right. Yeah, just like a lot of the other tribal colleges, we offer a wide degree of programming. I guess to highlight some of the important details or some of the programs that are notable would be the suite of natural resources programming at Salish Kootenai College. So that includes forestry, hydrology, and wildlife and fisheries. And of course, offering both associates and bachelors in those programs. But we also offer some other ancillary programs that would fall into the FEWS. That's a nice little acronym, by the way, FEWS. FEWS. You know, it never surprises me how successful a grant can be if you have a really nice acronym, especially with NSF. So shout out to them for all the wordsmiths out there who can develop these great acronyms. Anyway, back on track. Life science, we have a bachelor's in life science, general science, and then a certificate of completion in engineering or pre-engineering. Importantly and notable also, because we are a tribal institution, and we understand very well that food, energy, and water systems are inherently connected to everything that falls within the purview of tribal worldview. We cannot go without mentioning that we also have programs such as tribal historic preservation, tribal governance and administration, and grant projects management. Now, of course, these programs are very how would you say, critical in the implementation and the crafting of policies that would support food, energy, and water systems, especially in our local communities. But I think one of the more important components that our tribal college tries to impart on our students is the development of, or how traditional tribal values are incorporated in all of these programs, because these degrees, of course, can be taken or achieved in any number of institutions. However, we feel that the giving the students, or I suppose you could say, augmenting the strengths from their own communities in terms of traditional values is critical for them to return to their homelands and use their skills in a traditional and culturally important way. I don't know what my time is, but I'll stop there, the end. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Cowell, we would like to hear from you and your experience at the University of Arizona. The floor is all yours.
Well, thank you very much. And it's been impressive what's going on with the rest of the colleges across this nation. My goal for the Department of Environmental Science has been outreach to the tribal colleges in the form of 2+2 programs and 2+3 programs, in which the students will be able to achieve a degree in environmental science with highest efficiency in this. The Environmental Science Department also has something called an Accelerated Master's Program, where students can go for one more year after their BS and get a master's degree in environmental science, hence the name 2+3 program. And because students have been very much in vogue for research in this, we feel that this master's program really speaks to the students that are wanting to achieve all this. So these are the three programs that I've been mostly involved with, and I will yield the floor to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cole. Moving right along and back to the tribal college perspective, what do you see as some of the current barriers that we Native students, associated with us Native students pursuing FEWS degrees and careers? And perhaps we could begin back with Dr. Bauer at Dene College.
Okay, I thought it was very interesting what emerged from the student listening session on Monday that was displayed to us at the beginning of this session, showing, all of the different, from the students' point of view, what kind of support they felt they needed at different points. So I think that would be a good guide for all of us to take a look at. But the barriers that I've seen with my own students, certainly, you know, financial things get in the way, which is why we try as much as possible to come up with internship opportunities whenever we can, but it's difficult to provide you know, sufficient numbers of them, because I think another barrier at tribal colleges is just the number of faculty that you have in a certain area, the amount of teaching the teaching load is, and so it's difficult to manage a whole number of other programs that you would need in order to provide the kind of supporting activities that you would like to be able to have all the time. But I think barriers to trying to get everywhere that we need to get to reach students is certainly a barrier to building further programming. We want to work with high schools, but again, it's difficult to negotiate programs with all the different high schools across Navajo to develop that you know, public health pathway that I was talking about earlier. But we are trying to put more resources behind that effort now, because at the high school, students get an idea at that level of where they're headed. And I think it's very important to engage them at that point as early as possible. Otherwise, they don't truly understand the broad range of possible career options and disciplines that are available to them. So I think that's probably the most important thing, that and trying to get more smooth transfer to help students move on. I think our most success at tribal colleges has been simply building higher level programs so that students don't actually have to leave. But at some point, you know, we do need students to go off because we can't provide every possible option for them. And helping them succeed at graduate programs elsewhere once they've left our institutions is certainly a barrier that we're working hard to overcome. We've had partnerships with a number of institutions. Right now in public health, we're linking up with NAU, and they put together an Indigenous track to their masters in public health that we're getting students to transfer to now. So that's trying to overcome that barrier. But just trying to identify mentors and projects to engage students where they are, and that's where I'm you know, facing barriers in trying to help them overcome their barriers, I guess.
Thank you for that, Dr. Bauer. And maybe to keep the discussion going regionally within the area, I know that Dr. Cowell has some efforts that are also addressing the barriers with FEWS degrees in STEM careers at the University of Arizona. Would you like to add to that, Dr. Scott?
Sure. One of the barriers that I find, or I've noticed, is making sure the curriculums are lined up correctly between the tribal colleges and the university. So we are entering into something that's pretty cutting edge, even at the university, called curricular analytics. And what that is doing is that you're taking all of the curriculum that you have, putting it into a database and using artificial intelligence to design how a pathway for a student to go through the program. The advantages of this is that it becomes very dynamic. It can respond to the student's needs at an instance. For example, if you have a student that has a familial obligation in the fall semester and is going to have to leave the school or cut back on their classes, it can rearrange all of their curriculums in order to do that. Or if you have a student who does not want to take 2 challenging classes in the same semester, the artificial intelligence will rearrange all of their things. The goal of this intelligence, is AI, is to save money, to make sure the students can maximize the amount of credits that they're are achieving at the tribal colleges, and that those credits are transferring over into the university. And it's just being rolled out now at the U of A. In fact, they started building the programs in June. Now, because of my interface with tribal colleges, they want me to start trying to interface this with actual tribal colleges in this. Now, this thing that they're showing right now is a website that was set up by the university, but it's not affiliated with the university. Anybody can log on to this thing and try out the AI and see what it looks like. Oh, can you scroll back down, please? This is the actual pathway that is shown for a student, the term 1, term 2, term 3, of how it's going to go out. And it will really help students, travel students, to be able to interface with how they're taking their university courses and any type of obligations they have or any type of things that comes up in their lives that might hinder their thing. This can also use predictive pathways to predict the date of their graduation and the percentage of how to get this done. It's really dynamic, and I'll be using this. I'll be talking with Don. I'll be talking with all the tribal colleges that I've known in this area so that I can get this set up so that we can see how students will be able to progress through our programs so that they can get this done. Anybody can log on to this thing. Anybody can use it. These are some of the universities that are already using this stuff. University of Kentucky did this recently, and they were able to save $40 million over 5 years in tuition from students because this has been dynamic enough to keep up with the students as they go on. Thank you.
Dr. Pete, as a Native student who has gone through higher education and as a Native professor, what are some of those current barriers that you have seen?
Okay, well, I'm gonna hold myself accountable to the 3-minute response time. I'll put a little timer up there. Okay, so first of all, I don't ascribe particularly to the term barrier, for one. And I think we should more be mindful of the terminology we use when we're speaking of and about Native students in particular, and concentrate on what I would call strengths, which I think we all would agree on. But I understand the question, and that we want to figure out some of the things that might get in the way. So one of the things that I experienced as a student and also as a faculty, which I think a lot of Native students would share, is this: you hear this term called resiliency. That's a strength that our students have across many different ethnic backgrounds, you could say. But that resiliency can get consumed by a number of things that are experienced by students as they navigate this really foreign educational system, if you will. So if we can reduce some of that resiliency consumption, and it can come in many forms that can be recognized across an educational institution. It could be something as small as, getting treated badly by a financial aid person, or maybe availability of parking and how far that is to get to your respective classrooms. So I see a re-examination of this idea of barriers to really rebuilding an educational system and a structure that can augment the strengths of students. Now, that would take a degree of reform of the current system we have, but I really feel that if we can truly build an educational system, even as small as maybe a degree program that's founded in the traditional values of students, and not consume so much of that resiliency, that strength that our students have, then I think we can be successful in moving them along, because I feel each student has an ability to complete a degree. It's learning. It's learning things that I think all people have the capacity to learn, but I think we want to capture that uniqueness and capture that particular value that they carry with them from their tribal communities into that discipline. And that's where I really feel that the discipline will begin to work or produce the discoveries or new knowledge that would align better with tribal needs, tribal communities, and tribal worldviews. The end.
Kunta. Very, very honored to, as Haskell alum, to ask Dr. Wildcat, what do you see as the current barriers, or as Shandon had mentioned, things that get in the way for Native students to pursue FEWS careers and degrees?
Well, thank you very much. I think the things that get in the way have already been touched on to a certain extent. And so let me kind of elaborate. I think one, we still have too few of our indigenous folks as professionals in university environments, in research environments, and tribal colleges and universities are playing an incredible role in addressing that. And I think that's one of the things that tribal colleges and universities are beginning to really own. We see this as part of what we do in serving our community. So we have to have those role models. We have to have those professionals before us. One of the biggest obstacles that I think often indigenous students face is they might come from communities where they still have very stereotypical ideas of what maybe a research scientist looks like. and you know, because none of their aunties, none of their uncles are research scientists. We're beginning to change that so that they do have some aunties and uncles and cousins and brothers and sisters that are those scientists and professionals. But I believe this is something we've got to put right in the center. When you see scientists who look like you begin to realize, hey, I can do that. And so, and to pick up on Shandine's point too, it's time for us to play to our strengths. Think of the dominant debates that are going on now about higher education. We've got to break down the silos. We've got to think outside boxes. We can't let narrow disciplinary professionalism or even jargon keep us from interacting with professionals and scientists in other fields. I've got news for you. We come from intellectual traditions where we never had silos, where we never thought in boxes, and we thought about the very things that scientists are talking about today: systems, relationships, processes. That is the foundation, I would argue, of many of our indigenous worldviews in North America. I don't know them all. There is no expert on all Indians or all indigenous people, but being at Haskell Indian Nations University has been a blessing because it forces you to say, okay, yeah, we're different. Those Dene people and the Pueblos aren't like the people of the Wabanaki Confederacy of Maine or those Coast Salish people, and they're all different from the Plains people or my relatives in the southeastern United States. But you start to see some common denominators, and among those common denominators is the fact that, as the late John Mohawk, my mentor Vine Deloria, used to always emphasize, we have rich intellectual traditions, and we've got to start bringing those in to the academy. And I think when we do that, those barriers are going to start to disappear.
Thank you for that, Dr. Wildcat. Last but certainly not least, Dr. Halliday, we would love to hear from you and touching on this question.
I'm not a doctor.
So I apologize. Sorry for that, Mr. Halliday.
Just so nobody is you know.
My apologies.
Regarding me as a doctor, I'm not a doctor. So, everybody has touched on all the issues. We have looked at it as it's always been the best and the brightest are going to go into engineering. So how are we going to capture those best and the brightest to go into engineering? Well, those students are going to become engineers. They're already driven. And we want to increase the funnel of students who are coming into the STEM fields. So students who wouldn't typically think of themselves as STEM students, we try to get as technicians, hook them with the technical side of things and take the back door to STEM, so that we aren't just, we deal with the agencies, NASA, all of these people who want to increase their diversity, right? And we want to increase the amount of Native American students who become STEM professionals, right? And we can't do that just by concentrating on what is considered the best and the brightest, because they're going to succeed anyways. There's a whole group of students who are just as bright. They might not be that super book smart traditional student, but once they understand that, oh, technically I can do all of this work, gives them confidence, and it's not a leap to get into the engineering. Oh, I see how this works. I think I can improve it, which now I got to understand what's happening in the science area of this process. So a technician to engineer to scientist route, we think will increase this funnel of students and increase the number of Native American students who are becoming STEM professionals in the future. And that's what we do in our lab, and that's really what we've done in a lot of our other programs. We've plopped down a 4-year engineering program with nothing to particularly feed it. So we developed a 2-year engineering technology program for students who, that 4 years is a long-term commitment. So we offer them a shorter pathway with a plateau, kind of see where they've been, where they're going. They can move on, they can exit, whatever they feel comfortable with at that point. But we see that the students who get technically proficient in, especially our equipment here in our lab, ask better questions in the engineering courses. So a lot of times, the biggest barrier is what Dr. Wilcott said is, not having, there are no jobs here, there are no professionals here to say, hey, that's something I can do. And that's the same that we're trying to do with our environmental center, is to bring those jobs here so that students are working to that job and transitioning into that job. So we've hired our graduates in my lab. We've already hired 4 full-time staff, and we need to double that already because of the increased work that we're getting in here. So, that's an amazing thing, is that growth. And they're taking ownership of the lab. Pretty amazing.
Thank you for that. So now we'll start to build on what we've heard in terms of these challenges. And I would like to ask the question, what are some of the successful pathways for students in pursuing these FEWS careers? And I'd like to open this discussion up with Dr. Pete.
Yeah, so like I mentioned before, I'm a firm believer in reworking the educational system that we have today. So I think the steps to achieving these pathways for success for students is really to start at the pathway that the student would naturally take. And of course, that's something that we probably don't have a whole lot of control of, but the public education system that our students engage in, you know, we need to try to develop successful partnerships with those folks so that, I guess for lack of a better word, that we're not indoctrinating our students into an educational system that maybe we're not completely bought into, but one that aligns more with possibly a more natural way of learning for Native students. So some of the successes that I've achieved in I guess pushing tribal students through a hydrology program is really to give them what seems to be exciting content, which is generally a hands-on, out of the box, like Dr. Wildcat was saying, out of the box approach. And you know, doing is way better than saying, and that's and we don't see a whole lot of that, it seems, in the public education sector. It's really your traditional in the classroom doing worksheets about things that you might never do in real life. So providing that sort of opportunity to reinvigorate students into understanding what science is, I think is really important. You know, just helping my own children navigate that system, you know, just reflecting on, again, what Dr. Wildcat was saying. You know, they identify science as somebody in a lab coat, somebody in some uniform. But when you have a conversation with them about what science is, they begin to realize that they've been scientists at a very young age. And I believe that, you know, grounding all of that understanding in the traditions of the respective tribes that they might come from, or using those as platforms to promote investigations or projects that illustrate on-the-job skills, I think is really one important way to retain the students in the program. Naturally, everybody's going to experience some difficulties on the way, but if we can be mindful of those situations, I think we're going to see more and more students embracing these disciplines as not so foreign and outside of their own tribal structures. The end.
Thank you, Dr. Pete. Moving right along, Dr. Wildcat, we would love to hear from you.
Okay, here we go. Okay, so everyone's points have been excellent, and so let me kind of build on those. So let's begin first of all at the tribal college, where tribal colleges are. I think that playing to this notion that you know, the best way to know is to do, is that we really need to, through partnerships, through networks, build robust undergraduate research opportunities for tribal college students and get them out of doors, get them in the field, and get them working on the problems that are very real to them and their families: air quality, water quality, food, the very things we've been talking about through these series of wonderful workshops. Those are real issues for where people live. And, you know, I started about, oh my gosh, almost 12 years ago, something like that, at the time, talking to NASA and saying, you know, your internships where you're asking our students to go to Goddard Space Flight Center or Johnson Space Center, I said, you know, for some of those students, that's almost like going to the moon. I said, They've got issues, though, where they can use geoscience technologies to study right in their own community. So we worked to really create an externship model. And we said, let us bring students to Haskell for 3 weeks. Let us have them work with some of the best remote sensing experts, GIS people, and we're going to give them some basic tools. We're going to identify some mentors to work with them, and then they're going to go home and work on a project that's important to them, to their family, to their community. I think that's something we should all be working on, and we can do it if we can form respectful partnerships with these larger public, institutions, our sister institutions, ASUs and New Mexico, University of New Mexico, University of Arizona, MSU, Montana, University of Montana. We need to build some respectful, some honoring partnerships and make those kinds of opportunities happen. So that's kind of at that post-secondary level. The one thing I want to put a plug in for, and I'm doing this because we have a teacher education program at Haskell, an elementary education program, where I think they're really working on how to infuse good science education, but indigenous informed science into even K through 12 education. We are missing the boat if we don't start taking TEK, indigenous knowledges, and infusing those at the very, entry-level elementary education programs, first, second, third grade. And, you build the expectation. This is who I am. This is what my people did. And I think those are a couple of things that we can do, and we don't have to do it all ourselves. We can find some good partners to work with and really, make sure our students K through 12, post-secondary, and on all the way through that PhD pathway, begin to understand that, doing science is a part of who their people have always been and continue to be.
Thank you so much. I just want to mention for folks on the call that we are at the 12 o'clock mark, and we will be opening up Q&A at 12:15. But please keep continued discussion.
I know Dr. Mark Bauer, you're not listed on here, but we would definitely love to hear your insight on some of those successful pathways for students pursuing FEWS careers.
Thank you. I would just like to again mention the idea of having pathways all the way from high school or even younger. A lot of good science gets started. I think, in fact, the chair of our Board of Regents many years ago participated in one of my little 4th, 5th grade science activities, and he's never forgotten it. He always comes back and tells me how important that was. So that kind of thing is very, very valuable and difficult to keep going without, continually seeking funding from different directions. So I really appreciate all the funding agencies that have been able to provide those kind of opportunities for us. And also all the different universities that are really increasingly open to partnering in a variety of ways to help with reaching down and helping provide guest speakers or bringing some of the native graduate students back to engage with us, and then smoothing those pathways to graduate school. That's what we're currently working on.
Scott Holliday, would you like to add to any of the successful pathways for students to pursue FEWS careers?
Yeah, so our successes in pathways in STEM through the advanced manufacturing is a model that we're certainly going to be implementing in the FEWS careers too through our new environmental sciences. And it's really what's been said. My students, well, my interns, they live in the lab, and the partnerships with research, they're working on the technical side of research. So we're doing, we'll be on published on papers from other universities that we're doing a lot of the technical work that they either don't have the capacity to do at their schools or just don't have the time. And, that's very empowering to our students to know that they can do that kind of work, which inspires them to, again, learn more, and they're interacting with researchers. So what are you after, and getting them the data that's needed and learning more about the research that they're doing. So it's really inspiring and empowering to them for that. Of course, reaching down to the high schools, breaking down that barrier that, hey, this is available to you now. This is available at a local tribal college to you to pursue these kind of careers in the STEM fields. I think that we're still unknown in parts of Navajo Nation, which is incredible. We are the only ABET accredited engineering programs in the TCU family, and we're still, relatively unknown locally. So, successful pathways are getting out there and informing students and career placement people at the schools on the tribe. We're a little bit larger. We're the size of West Virginia, so we have a lot more land mass to go out there and recruit from, and sometimes that's hard. But I think definitely a successful pathway starts down K through 12.
Thank you so much. I know we're running a little short on time before we open up the Q&A slot. Maybe if we could get to the last slide and this would be, for Dr. Cowell, where should efforts be concentration in bringing more Indigenous representation to FEWS careers? Dr. Cowell?
Well, I would have to start with everybody's said very good things about getting students out in the field, getting them into what science is doing in their backyard. Now, environmental science has an advantage over other fields of science in that our backyard is our lab, so we can do this anywhere. So that, from what we have been working on and from what surveys that we have conducted, has shown that students who actually do field work in their undergraduate are more successful, are more engaged in the science, and are more likely to pursue it into higher professions. So that is one thing that is really important that needs to be done. One of the concentrations is what this conference is all about. It's communication. The more communications that can be had between the universities and the tribal colleges, not only between us, but between the advisors, between the professors, all of this communication really helps in getting students to get into FEWS careers and to be successful enough to want to go into advanced degrees or to get a job that they would like to pursue. So any type of thing that would help in getting communication going between our institutions is very good. I would like to see a statewide chat line with all advisors on it so that advisors can talk to one another concerning any particular student that they have in their that they're working with. That would really help in letting them know that the students have someone that they could talk to at the tribal college who already has introduced them to people at the university. I think that that would really help in pursuing this. That would be very important for a success in these students. Thank you.
Just to keep the discussion going, I know we have a question posted by Alice. What can MS and PhD granting institutions do better in creating successful Native pathways and partnerships with tribal colleges? And I know we're approaching the 12:15 mark, but please keep discussion going. Anyone who would like to chime in?
Well, for us, I think our 2+3 program, where we can get the students to get a master's degree within 1 year after getting a BS, is one thing that really helps them to go. It's not just getting a BS and then getting a master's degree. It's a flow in so that the ultimate goal is the master's degree. They have to take certain classes in their BS to prepare them for their master's degree, but it does get them to go into an advanced degree quicker. And there's also, like I said, field work that's involved in these types of things that helps them to grasp what they're doing and how they can pursue their degrees even further. Not only in the labs are there, but at their own tribal, indigenous nation.
Would anyone else like to add to their thoughts on improving the student experience?
Yeah. So it looks like Dr. Wildcat was, I'm going to jump in here. So personal relationships is a huge thing. We know that, like NNSA, they aren't a master's or PhD, but the same thing happens there. Our Sandia Labs partner has a personal relationship with our students. They come out, they visit, our students know them. It's a very easy recruitment situation at that point. The same thing happens with our major universities, University of Nebraska, Drexel University. They've come out, they've met our students. We've gone there. Our students have met their campus. And so it's a personal relationship that makes getting our students, our TCU students, transition to a master's or a PhD program.
Dr. Wildcat, did you have some input as well?
Yeah, let's see. I think I'm unmuted. Yes, just to build on the last point, which I think is excellent. If you're a private or public university or college with graduate degrees in the area of the sciences or engineering, I think it's imperative that you make the effort, your leadership, your faculty, make the effort to go visit those tribal colleges that are right in your backyard. I think once people visit tribal colleges and they see our students, they meet our students, they meet our faculty, and they see some of the incredible challenges we face even in our own institutions, sometimes, that they begin to have an appreciation for what our students can bring to their institutions. So they really need to reach out, okay, to TCUs. And guess what? At the end of the day, they're going to have some American Indian and Alaska Native PhDs they can hire to be those faces that our students need to see when they go to do those advanced degrees.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. So We're getting close to our 15-minute mark here, so I think we'll go ahead and start our Q&A session. So I'd like to invite people, if you haven't already, to go ahead and put your questions into the chat. We did receive a question earlier, and I'd like to start up the Q&A with that question. So we'll start with, can Scott or others say a bit more about your plans or interest in working on energy storage, technical or non-technical?
And sorry, Jory, I just launched for everyone to follow up on the last comment on visiting Tribal TCU. Just a poll to gauge how many of us have been to a tribal college. But please go ahead, Jory, sorry.
Could you repeat that question, please?
Yeah, sorry about that. So the question is, can Scott or others say a bit more about your plans or interest in working on energy storage, technical or non-technical?
Yeah, so I mentioned this earlier. Our energy systems, electrical engineers, and actually our chemistry department, we're always looking for partners. You know, we are a tribal college, which everybody who is at a TCU here knows that we're strapped for time. We wear 18 different hats. And, you know, for us to operate 12 different projects is extremely tough, you know, for our students. So we're always open to partnerships in energy systems, storage systems and things like that. You know, where we are in Navajo, you know, having microgrids and, you know, around so that power can be brought to places that still don't have power is a huge, you know, attraction to us.
So Scott, the question came from me. This is Dan Cameron at Berkeley, and I highlighted it just because what I found in some similar efforts on storage elsewhere is that frequently the specifications and designs of batteries don't take into account a lot of the local conditions, whether it's temperature or dust on solar panels or the need to have backup wiring on hand because it's going to be a local technician that will be repairing these things. So it's certainly an area where my lab is interested, and that's why I highlighted it, because I do think that with all of the opportunities now in the off-grid space, more partnerships around building robust, locally manageable systems is an area that just does not get enough attention at the national level. So we're certainly interested, but that's why I put the question out there. So thanks.
And it certainly seems like a economic opportunity for, you know, one of our graduates to take on, definitely. Looks like we're preaching to the choir, huh?
Dan, you had another comment about possible partnerships?
Yeah, I mean, it fed along this interesting 2+3 question a little bit as well. I mean, it struck me that we could do a better job in a more, maybe a little more formal way to provide that backup. And I say that because when I first came to Berkeley 20 years ago, we were running the NAREP program, the Native American Renewable Energy Project. And it was Department of Energy financed. One of the things that we did that we found had a lot of value was that we arranged our faculty and graduate students to essentially man a hotline. Back then, it was a phone version, but we could do an email or chat, and we could upgrade things after 20 years. And we found it to be a pretty useful resource, both to get people to come and visit some classes by Zoom or by phone, and also to try to get a little more synergy in what we were just talking about. Some of the opportunities, for example, to look at battery projects in environments where they're not normally being tested, or looking at some of the resilience that you need. And so something that we've been talking about with Suzanne Singer and others at Native Renewables was, where there be some things like this that would be useful for the colleges that would get more of an exchange of students back and forth. I would love it if it resulted in our students going to Diné or Navo Technical and back, but I'd love to see that kind of two-way exchange built in. So just a suggestion.
Thank you for that, Daniel. No, please.
In that, yeah, you know, I'm always advocating for major universities to send someone out here who's a PhD, master's degree candidate student, and spend a year out here helping to take the load, teaching and doing some of their work and engaging some of our students. I mean, you know, so often it seems that, you know, to save our students, we got to get them off the reservation. You know, that's the only way they're ever gonna you know, make it in life, is get off that reservation and come to NAS. You know, get off that reservation and come out here, and you're gonna have a good life. Well, you know, we got to keep them here and improve the life here. And getting those students and getting that personal interaction from, you know, major universities that want to partner with us, you know, taking some of the load, providing some effort, and getting to know us. Those personal relationships, that's the key to partnerships.
Yes, I agree with Scott in that commentary. You know, I had the experience of being on a diversity committee for a large university, and as the committee was chatting about different types of strategies, you know, I asked a very simple question. You know, do you know how many tribal reservations or tribes are in your state? And not one of them knew the answer to that question. Furthermore, they didn't even know that there was a large tribal community in their township there. So I just can't say enough about you know, getting out of your comfort zone as a administrator or faculty who might be aligning with the needs of tribal people. And man, do a Google search on your state. Find out who's there. That's the start. But I think what Scott says, we have experienced that same drain on our own mental resources, and the desire to have someone assist in teaching some courses, you know, even as an sort of an exchange with local universities. That's a very difficult endeavor, it seems, because largely faculty at these larger universities may or may not buy into the mission of the tribal college. They may not buy into the tenets and the worldview and understanding of science. So there's really a lot of doubt and suspicion, but also that emanates too from the tribal folks as well, where, you know, we don't want a savior to come in and rescue us and point out all the horrible things that's going wrong on our reservation. It's very easy to do that if your worldview is not aligned with the realities of tribal people. So when I look around, I see nothing terrible about my reservation. Sure, there's problems, the same as everywhere, but I see all the strengths, I see all the opportunities, and I think that's really should be the foundation when we examine tribal life, is put yourself outside of your own reality. And yeah, maybe the lawn's not mowed, maybe there's 3 or 4 broken down cars there, but man, you know, that we don't live the same life that other people do, but not as a criticism, but just as a reality. So really understanding that worldview, which is difficult, I think is really the start to reach the hand out in both ways to find a common ground.
That's interesting. What does a lawn look like? The lawn out here on Navajo looks a lot different than a lawn where you are.
I'm sure it does. Yes.
We don't spend money on lawnmowers.
I would like to point out that some of this partnering is going to become easier since the COVID pandemic actually drove most of us onto Zoom like this. There's a lot more familiarity with these kinds of ways of connecting and even teaching. This past summer, we actually ran our entire summer research enhancement program totally virtually, including research internships and a whole research methods class. So it was, you know, I really think that this panel taking place with, you know, over 50 people shows the promise of being able to connect more and more in the future.
I had a question about that, Dr. Bauer. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm familiar with AHEC and, you know, worked with Al Kay, and Carrie Billy has invited me to a few events to speak. And I know that all the tribal colleges are very active. I've also been to the AHEC conference. So as a TCU consortium, what are some examples of way that you communicate across the TCUs as well as the university partnerships that you currently have? Is it primarily through AHEC? Is that where you share a lot of that work?
I think that is, you know, probably one of the most obvious ones. You know, there is an annual meeting. There are newsletters that come out from the AHEC office. You know, Al Kusligas in particular has reached out repeatedly to try to organize different things among us. So that probably is the most frequent thing, although there are groups of tribal colleges that have worked together on different projects. So regionally, there are some additional things, but that's that, and people working on similar grants together that, you know, simply communicate.
I would just like, thank you. I just want to mention that we're at the 5-minute mark, excuse me.
Yeah.
What are examples of gaps that exist in terms of building that type of alliance nationally and across TCUs and universities? Why don't universities visit their local tribal colleges? You know, what are those gaps, and how can an alliance support that partnership or collaboration, communication?
When we meet universities, they generally don't know TCUs even exist. You know, it's just ignorance. They just don't know they are there, first of all. And then, you know, well, what good are they anyways? You know, it's, you know, they first come a calling for diversity, right? And then it's one of those, well, most come calling for diversity first, and then realizing that they have something to contribute later. So after they meet, you know, they go, oh, you guys actually do stuff. There's actual value here, which is, you know, eye-opening to them.
Yeah,
I don't know how they cold call.
I think, Carlita, one of the issues is that for big public institutions, and we see this all the time, it's about money. And I'm just going to put it out there. It's about money. You know, if they're looking for money, they're not going to find it coming to the reservation or probably come to a tribal college. I think what we have to do is, and you know, you're absolutely right. You know, they come, sometimes you feel like to check a diversity box. They want to check the box. Yeah, we're looking for diverse, you know, partners and that kind of thing. But I think what we've got to do is we've got to make a concerted effort to talk to university leaders, those provosts, those chancellors, those deans, and they have to step up and make a commitment. I think the reason that so many are hesitant to do that is because we're not going to just be overwhelmed because you're coming from a university and say, hey, we're from, wherever and university, and we're here to help. Well, we've heard that from the government. We've heard that from a lot of people before. And that usually means look out. It means investment in relationship building, and that takes time. And that's one of the challenges, I think, that makes it difficult, often for indigenous scholars to be able to even do work in their communities, because their advisors stuff are saying, well, we need something you can get in 3 years. Well, it takes sometimes a lot longer than 3 years to build a relationship, particularly if you're only going to come out, once or twice a year. So I think there are a lot of challenges.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Wildcat. As a native student, as a graduate from Haskell, and now within an administrative role at Berkeley, a lot of the conversation really speaks to the things that I hold close, and really, plan to unpack personally and professionally for our younger students within our home community. So thank you so much. We are out of time for today's discussion. However, everyone is more than welcome to hang out and continue dialogue. We do have some materials available for you upon request, as well as some poll information if you'd like to participate. And we would also like to mention that in November, Native November, we will be hosting another workshop, which information will be coming. And thank you so much for all of our panelists, for all of our students, for all of our participants today. This is a Native American Pathways to Higher Education and Career workshop, sponsored by the National Science Foundation and the Co-InFEWS website at Berkeley. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming. My name is Patrick Naranjo, and please feel free to stick around and continue discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. And a final thank you to our panelists and our moderators for this discussion today. So like Patrick said, we will keep the Zoom open for a little bit if anyone wants to do some networking or have some conversations. I understand it's lunchtime for a lot of people, or well into the afternoon for other people. So, so we'll just keep it open a little bit. And again, thank you so much.
And thank you to the National Science Foundation for funding these workshops. Could we get it off presentation mode in case there's anyone who wants to discuss? Thank you. I thought it was interesting. Just a very valuable discussion. The end of the last workshop, people wanted virtual tours, and this poll and this conversation about, are you visiting your tribal colleges or are there exchanges? Anyone interested in doing a virtual tour of innovations that you're doing at your tribal college?
Mm-hmm. Just to add to that a little bit, I teach a large class here at Berkeley called Energy and Society, where we do both technical and non-technical aspects. And because of COVID, we've actually moved our schedule of field trips to local power plants, to community groups on the front line of toxics issues, to online. And we've actually found, a lot of places have stuff online, but it hasn't been that hard to, for example, set up a camera and talk to people who are doing day-to-day things and kind of get a useful conversation around everything from internships to areas where we could do research that helps out groups. I mentioned the thing the project we're doing with Suzanne and Native Renewables, where we've been sending small solar systems They're actually these. So it's a 27,000 milliamp battery, 20-watt panels that that she's been testing out to see how useful they are for household appliances, and gathering data back on what works, what doesn't. All those things we found really useful in kind of the virtual tour, virtual conversation style.
Thank you. Dr. Wildcat, did I hear you volunteer?
Yeah, I think we'd be very interested, yeah, in a virtual tour,
Great.
I would like to assist with that on behalf of AIGP and Haskell also. So tell me what to do.
That would be great. We probably need some technical assistance to pull it off. Patrick, be awesome. This is something we could get you, some of our students to work on, okay?
Absolutely. And thank you so much for this opportunity, Dr. Wildcat. I remember sitting in your classroom some years ago learning about Power in Place, and it is quite the opportunity to have this forum with you today. Thank you.
You bet. Glad to be here.
And Dan, maybe we could do native renewables with you and Suzanne Singer. Do you think that'd be possible?
Yeah, that would be exciting.
We actually did a little video back and forth as we tested out which types of cables, which type of hardware was most useful. So I don't want to speak for her, but I'm pretty confident we could.
Okay, great.
That would be awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Anyone else want to volunteer or volunteer someone else? Well, this is a good start.
This was great. Thank you for this opportunity. And like I was telling Dr. Wildcat, let me know what I can do.
Really, really good interaction. Great panelists today. Everyone just a marvelous job. Yes.
And also thanks to our moderators.
So I'm probably going to sign off and back to my NSF LI. I've got to get submitted this afternoon. So anyway, thank you so much for this opportunity. And we'll be in contact, okay?
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Discussion.
I'm probably going to have to log off as well, but thanks to the organizing committee and the organization for the opportunity to share my banter. I don't know if it's great. I don't know if it's radical, but but I appreciate your the time, and thanks, Carletta, if you're listening. Thanks for the invite, and I put email address in the comment section if anybody's interested in a virtual tour. I did have one person interested, so if there's a number of people or even a single individual, we can tote an iPhone around campus and do like a flash interview with folks and put them on the spot. You know, these well, there's not a lot of faculty on campus right now because of the COVID restrictions and those kind of things, but we could definitely set up something if folks are interested, and we would make accommodations for that, because us too at the Indigenous Research Center are funded by the National Science Foundation. So we appreciate their contribution, and we want to make sure that we can put this down in our annual report as a potential collaboration. You know how the national, you know how those reports go. So
Absolutely.
Check the box off.
It's more than checking the box. It's
right.
Thank you.
Hopefully.
Nice to hear from you today, Shandon. Kunda, thank you. And please let me know, like I said, how I can help at Berkeley.
You bet. Yeah. I'm sure there's something we can figure out, and it just depends on time, and with this virtual space, I think we can all accommodate something that would work. So I'm very interested in the work you guys do over there. So
let me know how I can help. Absolutely.
Sure. Alrighty. And then I did put a link up to our podcast for our research center, and we had Jory on one of our, actually two of our, or was it just one? Two or one? I can't remember. 2 episodes, 1 episode. Yeah. So I can't remember what number that episode is, but we were very fortunate to get her to talk, and she has a wealth of knowledge she's a shining beacon of hope among her people. No, I'm just kidding. But she is I'll just talk her up a little bit. Yeah. So again, thanks, and we'll see you guys and follow up by email if you want to know more.
You will.
Thanks so much, Dr. Pete. I appreciate it. So also I'm thinking about the virtual tours. If people can record those, we could host them on the Co-InFEWS website too. And things like the podcast, you know, under Shandine Pete's bio, we could have a link to the podcast so that people can get to that. Or don't we have a resources page on the website, Yael, where
We
there
do
are,
have,
where
we
have
do
all that
have, and we will upload all these.
But I do think that the discussion is valuable than just looking at a static video or something else. So I think the combination of the discussion and the virtual tour is beneficial.
I do prefer that interactive piece much more than just watching the video. All right, folks, if there aren't any final comments, I would love to excuse myself.
Hey, thank you for everything. This was awesome.
You guys were great. Thanks, Jory and Patrick. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jory.
All right, team. We'll see you Wednesday for a debrief. And Yael, I'll be in touch shortly today.
Okay.
To see how we can unwind.
And thanks.
Get some lunch and
all of your great work too. You're tremendous.
Yes. Thank you all for your contributions today.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
Carletta. Oh, that's right. It's Friday. TGIF. See you guys.
Bye.